Chapter 988. The director of A Lethal Beauty was Gu Xiaoyang, an experienced director in the film industry. During the preparation stage, other than the few connections the investors had placed in the team, he had sent a group of messages to the few female leads he had in mind. Alas, Yun Shishir was not among the 5 names listed. As a newcomer, her movie had not yet been released, so Gu Xiaoyang did not have a deep impression of her. He only knew that this newcomer had good potential, but she was not special enough for him to personally invite her. Among the 5, Lin Ji was one, and Han Yuyan was the other. Out of the 5 female stars, 4 of them were under Huanyu. As an entertainment empire, Huanyu had many big names under its banner, and the flowers were flourishing and blooming. 3 of the 4 top female stars in the film industry were from Huanyu, which showed Huanyu's influence. Inviting Huanyu's artists to be the female lead candidate was tacitly approved by Qingguang Entertainment as the investor. On the surface, it seemed very selfless, but when Ji Lin heard the news, he was furious. Was this a blatant attempt to win fans? First, they used Huanyu's artists to hype up the show. Then, when it came to the final selection, they would choose their own artists. Not only did they hype up the show, but they could also use Huanyu's A-list female stars to hype up their artists. Wasn't this killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Qingguang's method was quite scheming. But so what if they knew it was a blatant attempt to win fans? A show was a good one. Even if the chances were slim, they had to seize every opportunity. When Qin Zhou found out that the show was about to be filmed, he immediately asked Gu Xiaoyang to meet him. He threw him an olive branch and went straight to the point, recommending Yun Shishir. Qin Zhou had a lot of connections in the industry and had a good relationship with Gu Xiaoyang. Because he had spoken, Gu Xiaoyang gave Yun Shishir the opportunity to audition. Even if it was just an audition, the chances were slim, but it was still not easy to come by. As for whether she could be chosen, Qin Zhou did not have much confidence. He even guessed that the show was tailor-made to promote Lin Ji. After listening to his detailed analysis, Yun Shishir was a little disappointed. I think it's more than slim. It's impossible. Lin Ji is an artist from Qingguang. How could Qingguang choose an artist from Huanyu as the female lead? That's a big blow to your morale. Qin Zhou smiled playfully and cast a sidelong glance at her. Shishir, pick up your fighting spirit. The chances are slim, but it's not hopeless. I'm a bit curious. What are you curious about? Yun Shishir asked, since this drama is a popular IP, why didn't Huanyu buy the adaptation rights of this novel? Shishir, some things are not as simple as you think. The benefits involved were very deep. Moreover, one of the reasons why Huanyu didn't get the rights to this drama was because Huanyu's recent focus was on the movie IP. Most of the funds were invested in the movie script. Recently, Huanyu bought a Tomb Raiding IP and is about to start filming. Originally, I wanted to arrange for you to join the cast, but after weighing the pros and cons, I decided to let you audition for Lethal Beauty. Qin Zhou also carefully read the Tomb Raiding script. This drama was based on the famous tomb raiding novel, Strange Tomb. The theme of tomb raiding was very popular. Chapter 989. Lethal Beauty, on the other hand, was different. The script for Lethal Beauty was more or less completed. It had been changed into a 90-episode-long series. The schedule had also been finalized. It would be aired during the summer prime time. Lethal Beauty's influence was far greater than Creepy Tomb's. Its popularity was definitely not something that Creepy Tomb could compare to. Plus, it had a long exposure time and a wide audience. It was a good opportunity to build popularity with the audience. After Qin Zhou finished his analysis, Yun Shishir was already dumbfounded. She suddenly understood why Qin Zhou was called the #1 golden agent. He deserved it. Just the way he picked the script showed that he had a keen eye for it. Even if it's a waste of effort, we can't miss any opportunity. What if your audition results amaze Gu Xiaoyang? Who knows, he might choose you. You have to know that Gu Xiaoyang is a famous director with 2 high ratings. He has a lot of power. Okay, I'll try. Yun Shishir took the script from him. Actually. Qin Zhou suddenly frowned. He wanted to say something but stopped. Actually what? Nothing. Qin Zhou shook his head and smiled faintly. He did not say anything. He originally wanted to say, actually, it's just a female lead. If we can get Mu Yaja to help us, it won't be a problem. But with Shishir's personality, she might not be willing. She was strong-willed. She must want to get the role with her own abilities. Yun Shishir smiled. Qin Zhou, don't worry. I'll do my best. I won't let your efforts go to waste. Qin Zhou smiled. When she got home, she began to study the script carefully. She finished reading it overnight. It was a rare and good script. In fact, palace dramas had always been a popular theme for TV dramas. In the past 10 years, 5 of the top 10 palace dramas had made it to the top of the top 10. Palace dramas had a very large audience. If the reputation and ratings were good, as the female lead, she would definitely win the hearts of the audience. The main storyline of the script mainly told the story of Qin Changle, the daughter of a concubine in the prime minister's residence, assisting the prince to ascend to the throne. She was given the title of empress, but in the end, she was betrayed and ended up in the cold palace. She suffered humiliation and died with hatred. After death, she was reborn 20 years ago. She took revenge domineeringly and finally reaped happiness. The characters were distinct, and the plot was intertwined. The theme was political intrigue and palace strife, which was fascinating. Yun Shishir was certain that if this drama was well made, it would definitely become a new milestone in palace drama. It was a good script. Yun Shishir sighed again in her heart. She couldn't hide her excitement. She didn't have much hope for the audition, but after reading the script, her fighting spirit was reignited. Taking advantage of the short break after the completion of the filming of The Green Apple, she studied the script 3 times and carefully highlighted the key points. Soon, Yun Shishir received the script for the audition. The script for the audition was that 15 years after Qin Changle was banished to the cold palace, she was faced with the emperor's imperial edict to kill herself. She was heartbroken and resentful. Using this as the script for the audition was a great test of the actor's tension and knowledge of the lines. The day before the audition, Yun Shishir was extremely nervous. She tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. She felt very regretful when she thought that this script might already have a female lead. She really wanted to get the chance to play the female lead. However, when she thought of the frightening fan bases of Lin Jiyu and Han Yuyen, she thought that the competition was too great. Chapter 990. On the day of the audition, Yun Shishir woke up early and rushed to the audition venue after she was done with her preparations. She was in the second group and was in the same batch as Lin Ji. However, the latter was the first and she was the last. As for Han Yuyen, she was in the first group. When she arrived at the venue, she went to find out about the first group's audition. The result was that Han Yuyen had been kicked out. Han Yuyen was kicked out. Yun Shishir had seen the name list. Did she not hear that Han Yuyen's performance was commendable and that the director was satisfied with it? Yes. The director said that he was satisfied, but it was just a superficial compliment. If he directly said that she was kicked out, wouldn't it be embarrassing for her? The director definitely didn't want to offend her. Even if she was kicked out, he had to make it look good. Of course, this is insider news that I heard, so it can't be fake. Yun Shishir trusted her assistant's efficiency, but it was indeed a little surprising that Han Yuyen was eliminated in the first round. Why was she eliminated? Her assistant answered, "She looks old." After all, her age is obvious. Moreover, in order to enter Hollywood, Han Yuyen's stylist intended to make her look like a top actress. Hence, the director felt that she was too old and didn't have the feeling he wanted. Yun Shishir pouted. Qingguang Entertainment is really scheming. On Weibo, when the production team released the news of Han Yuyen's participation in the female lead audition, it blew up instantly. Han Yuyen's fan base was not to be underestimated. The support for Han Yuyen to be the female lead was very strong. The production team clearly wanted to trample on Han Yuyen and boost Lin Ji. Han Yuyen must be very depressed, but she had no choice. This was indeed a good script. If there was a chance, she would definitely not let it go. Mu Shi brought Yun Shishir to the dressing room. On the way, they brushed past a woman in a luxurious dress. Yun Shishir glanced back but did not pay much attention to her. Hence, she followed her assistant to the dressing room. Someone called out to her from behind. "Stop right there." Yun Shishir stopped in her tracks suspiciously. She slowly turned around and looked at the woman in front of her, who was dressed in a gorgeous phoenix coronet. It was a little unfamiliar, but he had some impression of it. She rarely paid attention to dramas and movies, so Mu Shi was the first to recognize her. She whispered into her ear, "Shishir, it's Lin Ji, Lin Ji." Mu Shi was visibly agitated. It was no wonder that Lin Ji was her goddess. At such a young age, she relied on her beautiful looks and superb acting skills to defend her place in the entertainment industry. Yun Shishir looked at her, only to see that the woman in front of her was also sizing her up with a cold gaze. "You are..." Lin Ji paused for a moment. Yun Shishir. She remembered her. He was a new topic on Weibo. She seemed to be the target of Huan Yu's recent efforts. Yun Shishir had just debuted, and Huan Yu had already poured resources into her. Most of them were gold resources. Yun Shishir nodded politely. "Hello." Compared to her, Yun Shishir's attitude seemed a little more arrogant. "Are you here for the audition too?" Mu Shi keenly sensed the hostility in her eyes and suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. She had seen the interviews, and the media was full of praises for her character. They said that she was gentle and pleasant, but now, her good impression of her had been shattered. Yun Shishir lightly replied, "Emichim." Chapter 991. In other words, she seemed to be implying that Yun Shishir was shamelessly trying to compete with her for the female lead role. She was clearly trying to embarrass Yun Shishir. Lin Ji was obviously hostile towards her. She did not know at first that Yun Shishir would be participating in this audition. Despite the fact that the female lead had already been internally selected for this audition, Lin Ji was still displeased with the actress. Why? It was because they had both debuted not long ago, were both highly supported by the company, and had the same style. Huan Yu had used Yun Shishir's popularity to hype her up since her debut. Of course, Yun Shishir was unaware of this. The actress was aware of it, though, and she was still brooding over it. No one was willing to let their popularity be used by their competitor. Mu Shi broke out in a cold sweat, only to hear Yun Shishir calmly say, "Emichim. This show is very popular, so I'll join in the fun." Her relaxed and teasing tone easily dispelled the awkward atmosphere. Lin Ji was stunned, and her gaze on Yun Shishir deepened. Her assistant urged her from the side. It was almost her turn for the audition. Lin Ji snorted, then turned around and left. Mu Shi's lips twitched. "I've decided not to be a fan anymore." "Huh?" She fumed. "That actress is so arrogant. She even deliberately made things difficult for you. I'm so angry." "Alright, don't be angry. Sure, you must work hard and get the female lead role. Let's see if she still dares to look down on you." Yun Shishir, however, was honest. "I don't think I have a chance." "Huh?" Mu Shi was stunned. Are you that unconfident? I was still hopeful that the audition would be a success, but judging from her tone earlier, it seems that she's really the female lead, Yun Shishir said. Then, are we still participating in the audition? Of course. Why not? Qin Zhou fought for this role for me, so how can I let him down? Even if I can't get the female lead role, I can at least make myself known. Yun Shishir said optimistically. Get acquainted. Pfft, Mushi was tickled by her optimistic side. When she entered the dressing room, the stylist's attitude became much colder when he heard that she was an artist from Huanyu. He casually threw her a set of white clothes and left. Yun Shishir opened the plain white dress. She thought about the luxurious dress Lin Ji was wearing. Indeed, it couldn't be compared. Mushi said gloomily, that's too much. Lin Ji's clothes are so pretty, but why do you look like morning clothes? Yun Shishir raised a brow and suddenly smiled. Mushi, help me with my makeup. My makeup skills aren't that good. You don't have to put on too much makeup. Just put on a thicker layer of powder, make your face look more haggard, make your eyes bigger, make your eyelashes longer, and make your lips a little more chapped. That's easy. With that, she got to work. Not long after, the makeup was done. Yun Shishir looked at the mirror, and a haggard yet beautiful face came into view. Since the audition script was a cold palace drama, the makeup could not be too gorgeous and should look more haggard. She was the last in the second group. Yang Mi suddenly walked in and was surprised to see Yun Shishir there. She was even more surprised to see her in a white shirt and haggard makeup. Shishir, are you here for the audition, too? Yun Shishir smiled when she saw her. Yes. Chapter 992. Yun Shishir explained, the audition script is a scene in the Cold Palace, so, Cold Palace. She raised a brow suspiciously. Shishir, did you get the wrong script? What? The audition isn't a scene in the Cold Palace, you must have gotten it wrong. She told her the truth. Yun Shishir, however, was stunned. Wrong? How could it be wrong? This script was given to her by Qin Zhou. Alarmed, Mushi quickly called the manager to verify the situation. He, however, said, the script is from Qingguang Entertainment. Why? Is it wrong? Mushi replied, I just asked around. The first group's audition seems to be for the female lead's conferment. It seems that someone cheated. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, Qingguang Entertainment purposely gave me a wrong script. What should we do, then? Mushi was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Yun Shishir, prepare for the second group's audition. Someone knocked on the door to inform Yun Shishir to prepare for the audition. The scene was in a deadlock for a moment. Mushi was even more anxious now. At this critical moment, the script was wrong. What should she do? Why don't? Shishir, we don't audition. She suggested. Yun Shishir exchanged glances with Yang Mi pursing her lips. She calmly said, let's try. Ha! Yang Mi naturally understood what Yun Shishir meant and said, since you're here, regardless of whether the script is right or wrong, if you leave like this, the production team will definitely think that Shishir is throwing her weight around and disrespecting the production team. If this matter gets out, Shishir's reputation will be tarnished. When Yun Shishir reached the audition hall and walked in, the director's team, who were seated at the table, was stunned and frowned one after another. The audition script was for the conferment scene, so why was she dressed so plainly? Her makeup was also so haggard. Gu Xiaoyang looked at the name list. Yun Shishir, it turned out that she was the newbie recommended by Qin Zhou. Her looks and aptitude were not bad, but, Gu Xiaoyang said coldly, Yun Shishir, didn't you read the script? Which part is this? You didn't even read the script. He had no professionalism at all. Let's go, you're out. The producer patted the table. Yun Shishir bit her lip and said in a deep voice, "I've read the script." When the producer heard this, he questioned, "Then why are you dressed like this?" Yun Shishir couldn't possibly say that someone was behind this, could she? This producer looked very crafty and would definitely think that she was shirking her responsibility. "Alright, I see that you didn't prepare seriously at all. You don't value this audition at all. You're out." The producer spoke, as if he didn't intend to leave her any leeway. Yun Shishir bit her lips and frowned slightly. Although she was unwilling, she couldn't say anything. Just as he was about to leave, Gu Xiaoyang suddenly spoke. "Hold on." Yun Shishir paused and decided to give him some leeway. Gu Xiaoyang flipped through the script and asked, "Which part are you preparing for?" Yun Shishir replied, "The part where I was sentenced to death in the cold palace." "Alright, you can start then." The producer beside them was anxious. "Director Gu. You. This person obviously doesn't value this audition, why are you? At least let her finish her performance." Gu Xiaoyang looked a little impatient. "Are you the director or am I the director?" The producer kept quiet. Gu Xiaoyang could tell that Yun Shishir had read the script and had read it very carefully. Chapter 993. Her snow-white outfit and haggard face were very suitable for the scene. Moreover, she was recommended by Qin Zhou. At the very least, he had to let her finish her performance for his sake. Yun Shishir thanked him gratefully. "Thank you, director, for giving me this chance." Gu Xiaoyang folded his arms and casually said, "Start your performance. You have 3 minutes." Yun Shishir adjusted her emotions and quickly got into character. 10 years. 10 whole years. It's me. I've been by your side, risking my life with you, assisting you wholeheartedly. Finally, you ascended to the throne and obtained this vast empire, but what did I get? What did I get? I gave my all for you without any complaints or regrets, but in return, I was imprisoned for 10 years. Now, you actually want to kill me. Nailan Yi, you're so heartless. Yun Shishir's eyes were ashen, but deep within them, there was a sinister hatred. The dramatic expression on her face was full of tension. Gu Xiaoyang crossed his arms in front of his chest and watched in silence. His expression was profound, and no one could tell if he was happy, angry, or sad. When Yun Shishir left the audition hall, Mu Shi, who had been waiting outside, immediately went up to her. "How was it? Did you pass?" Yun Shishir looked at her calmly. "No." "Ah. You're eliminated directly." This result was too surprising. She was 100% confident in Shishir's acting skills. Mu Shi widened her eyes in shock. "How did you get eliminated directly? Even if there was a mistake in the audition script, with your acting skills, it's impossible for you to be eliminated in the first round." "Did the director say anything?" "The director didn't say anything," Yun Shishir replied. "It was the producer who announced the result directly." Sigh. I should have known that the producer and investor are in cahoots. It's clear that Qingguang has already decided on Lin Ji as the female lead. Mu Shi scratched her head gloomily. Yun Shishir said, "So, it's not surprising that I'm eliminated." After removing her makeup, Yun Shishir and her assistant left. In the car, Yun Shishir received a call from Qin Zhou. "Shishir, I heard from Director Gu that you were eliminated." "Yes." Yun Shishir's expression was very calm. After all, she had expected this, and it was not unexpected. "Don't be sad, Director Gu just called and praised you. He said that your acting skills are very good, but he revealed that this audition is just a gimmick, and that they have already decided on the female lead." Yun Shishir said, "It's Lin Ji, right? You know." "Yes. Therefore, I am not surprised by this result." Qin Zhou continued, Director Gu said that if you're willing, he can use his authority to cast you as the second female lead. What do you think? Will you consider it? Second female lead. In the script, the second female lead was the female lead's elder sister, Qin Xianhui. She was the #1 beauty in Western Liang and the daughter of the Prime Minister. She had a vicious heart and was extremely shrewd. On the surface, she looked gentle and generous, but in reality, she was an extremely vicious woman. In her past life, she was the mastermind behind Qin Chang'el's death. After Qin Chang'el's rebirth, Qin Xianhui continued to plot against her. In the end, she suffered the consequences of her own actions. It was a role that tested one's acting skills but did not please the audience. Still, it was a very important role. Qin Xianhui's role was entirely to support Qin Chang'el's character. Yun Shishir frowned but did not say anything. Chapter 994. What is it? Qin Zhou calmly read a name over the phone. Mu Yazha. Yun Shishir could not help but clench her fists. She really liked the script of Lethal Beauty. However, the entertainment industry was like this. It was not about ability. More importantly, it was about background, means, and backing. This role should be a piece of cake for Mu Yazha, right? However, Yun Shishir could not help but feel hesitant. She did not really want to use Mu Yazha to get this role. The headquarters of Dishing Financial Group was located in the most luxurious area of Beijing's economic and trade center. The 99-story commercial building gave people a sense of majesty. Standing on the top floor of such a majestic building, one would feel as if they were looking down on the world. Of course, she did not know how terrifying Mu Yazha's net worth was. It was said that the entire Mu Group was equivalent to the country's commercial lifeline and the most important financial core in Asia. If the Mu Group made any moves, the entire financial world would be shaken. The Mu Group monopolized the country and was extremely powerful. Both the legal and illegal sides of the world occupied the vast territory. Mu Yazha held the power of life and death in the Mu Group. In the future, he would definitely become the owner of this highly anticipated business empire. In the luxurious office, Mu Yazha held the phone and leaned elegantly against the back of the chair. One of his hands was tapping on the table absent-mindedly. His long and narrow eyes were half closed. A deep and powerful voice came from the other end of the phone. It sounded a little angry. Yesterday, old Master Song called me and said that as an elder, you did not know what you were doing. He actually made his granddaughter suffer because of an actress of unknown origin. I don't care who that woman is. The Song family is the most important chess piece in your journey to becoming the head of the family. If you have the Song family's help, your position as the head of the Mu family will be even more secure. Mu Yazha's eyes were tinged with a trace of coldness, but his mellow voice was as cold as ice. Second uncle, don't interfere in this matter. I know what I'm doing. On the other end of the phone, the man's voice suddenly became gloomy. It's not that second uncle didn't tell you, but now that the Mu family is in trouble, you can't take any risks. You know, you're just the heir now, you haven't grasped the real power of the Mu Jia. I've always thought that you're smart and would never make a mistake. But don't you think you've handled this matter inappropriately? Of course, the Song family's old man may be exaggerating, but given Song Enya's status, I don't believe that he would be bewitched by a woman and offend the Song family. Mu Yazha lifted his sexy lips, his voice cold and full of sarcasm. Since when did I, Mu Yazha, need to rely on the Song family to strengthen my position? Since I can sit in this position, I can continue to sit in it steadily. The man suddenly fell silent and did not make a sound. Mu Yazha chuckled. Second uncle, your and Grandpa's era is over. It's my era now. The man sighed and said indignantly, it's up to you. Don't disappoint second uncle, though. Second uncle still believes in your ability. Handle this matter well. I know what I'm doing. Chapter 995. Even the faint breathing and whispering outside the door could be easily heard. He raised his eyes and looked at the door, saying coldly, "Come in." As his voice fell, the person outside the door seemed to hesitate for a long time. After hesitating for a long time, he pushed the door open. Yun Shishir strode in. The moment she stepped into the office, she could feel the strange heavy atmosphere. This office was shockingly huge. It was more than 100 square meters. The decoration was simple yet luxurious, but standing in it, one could easily feel an invisible pressure. Even their breathing could not help but be suppressed. Yun Shishir looked at the man sitting at the desk. At this moment, he was elegantly supporting his chin with one hand as he stared straight at her. His eyes were no longer as gentle as they were in the morning. They were so deep and dark that one would not dare to look directly at them. His expression was as cold as ice. His icy gaze swept past Yun Shishir and Mu Shi, who were standing at the door. A strong aura swept over them. Mu Shi was intimidated by his gaze and broke out in a cold sweat. The emperor-like aura emanating from him made her feel timid. She could not help but hide behind Yun Shishir. Chairman Mu. Mu Shi had just opened her mouth when she saw his pair of eyes as dark and gloomy as a black fog. They were very deep, very dark, and cold. She could not help but lower her head in shock, not daring to speak. "Get out. I don't like to be disturbed when I'm working." Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and knocked on the table. His cold gaze fell on Mu Shi. His tone was very calm, but it revealed a majestic aura that made one unable to look directly at him. Just a few words made Mu Shi break out in a cold sweat. Yun Shishir said to her, "You can leave now." Mu Shi left the office. Mu Yaja's expression eased a little. "Why are you here?" Mu Yaja swept a glance at Yun Shishir. However, at this moment, he was clearly not in a good mood as his face was gloomy. He did not like to be disturbed when he was working. This was especially true when he had an argument with his second uncle earlier. He was in a very bad mood. "Am I disturbing you?" Seeing this, Yun Shishir saw that the man was constantly emitting a low pressure. She probed, "Then, should I go out too?" Mu Yaja suddenly raised his arrogant chin, and the corners of his lips curled up. "What are you doing here?" Different. The man in front of her was completely different from the Mu Yaja she knew. Sometimes, this man's aura was really domineering. At this moment, Mu Yaja was like a high and mighty emperor. Just one look from him was enough to make people feel fear. Mu Yaja looked at her deeply and suddenly said in a deep voice, "Come here." Yun Shishir didn't dare to move. She had never seen such a cold and unfeeling side of this man. His expressionless face always made people feel that he was overly cold. Seeing that she still didn't move, Mu Yaja said, "Come here." Yun Shishir was startled by this indifferent tone. She stood there in a daze, feeling a little helpless. She didn't dare to go over, afraid that he would swallow her whole. She hesitated for a moment and then slowly walked to his side. The chair was turned around, and he pulled her into his embrace. She cried out in surprise as her waist was firmly held by him, and her whole body was locked in his embrace. Chapter 996. The man bent down and bit her earlobe. His long fingers pinched her chin, forcing her to look up at him. Mu Yaja's voice was low and charming. "What's with that look? It's as if I'm going to eat you alive." "Because, you don't seem to be in a good mood." Mu Yaja closed his eyes slightly, and a trace of fatigue appeared on his face. "I'm a little tired." He had 3 video conferences in the morning, followed by a series of tedious affairs. It was inevitable that he felt a little frustrated. Yun Shishir reached out and rubbed his temples. The moderate amount of strength was just enough to relieve his faintly tense nerves. "Are you feeling better?" she asked when she saw him frowning. I'm feeling better. Muyaja opened his eyes, grabbed her chin, and kissed the corner of her lips. Are you looking for me for something? Yun Shishir nodded. Suddenly, she shook her head. Muyaja laughed. He did not know what she wanted to say. Is there anything? Yun Shishir did not mention that mattered to him in the end. She wanted to get rid of him and get the role in Lethal Beauty for her. However, after thinking for a while, she did not say anything. She curled her lips and smiled. It's nothing. Why? I want to see you. Can't I? Did I disturb you? Are you unhappy? Muyaja scratched the bridge of her nose. You can come whenever you want. After that, he bent down and kissed her lips. It was just a small bite. The tip of his tongue ran over her lips wantonly. It was a charming kiss. She pushed him away. When do you get off work? 5:00. Okay. I'll wait for you. After that, she went back to the sofa obediently. She picked up a magazine and flipped through it. She planned to wait for him to get off work and go home together. Minyu suddenly knocked on the door and walked in. He saw Yun Shishir sitting on the sofa. She smiled and nodded. Then, she came to him and said slowly, Boss, CEO Wang of Huafeng Appliances invited you for dinner tonight. I'm not going. But, this dinner is very important. You've already rejected him 3 times. If you reject him again, I'm afraid you won't be giving him face. This isn't good, right? Muyaja frowned. CEO Wang of Huafeng Electric Appliances had invited him 3 times, but he had turned him down one by one. Because, someone was waiting for him at home. Therefore, he turned down all the dinners that night. Yun Shishir looked up. Muyaja, go ahead. He raised his eyebrows. Can I go with you? Muyaja raised his eyebrows. You're willing to accompany me? Yes. On the way to the dinner. Yun Shishir sat in the front passenger seat and said nervously, This seems to be my first time attending a dinner party. I'm a little nervous. Muyaja, this stupid woman. It's just a dinner party. What's there to be nervous about? Yun Shishir turned her head and asked, What do you think I should do if I get forced to drink? Muyaja raised his eyebrows and rubbed her head lazily. He smiled and said, I'd like to see who dares to force you to drink. Yun Shishir was stunned. The so-called dinner party was a social gathering at the table. It was a clash of interests. As the CEO of Mu Group, this kind of thing was commonplace. In China, there was such an unspoken social circle. A group of people would sit at the table and talk about business and interests over wine. Chapter 997. This time, it was nothing more than the boss of a financial group who had made a wrong decision a few days ago and caused quite a bit of trouble. Hence, he quickly gathered a group of friends and booked a private room at a 5-star hotel, hoping that Muyaja would lend a helping hand. At the table, Yun Shishir finally understood the meaning behind Muyaja's words. It was different from what she had imagined. Indeed, no one dared to force her to drink. After Muyaja introduced her, the group of men in suits looked at her in awe. Even if she was drinking fruit juice, those men still toasted her by the glass and downed it in one gulp without any hesitation. Their actions were so nimble that it was like moving clouds and flowing water. Their gazes towards her were also filled with fear and trepidation. Alright, was she that scary? Or rather, was the big boss sitting beside her that scary? How would those people dare to force Yun Shishir to drink? They couldn't wait to compliment her. They had a favor to ask of Muyaja, so if they were careless and made him unhappy, their company would be completely destroyed with just one word from him. Even if they were all sprawled on the table and carried back, they wouldn't be able to force Yun Shishir to drink. After the dinner, someone enthusiastically suggested that Mu Yaja and Yun Shishir be invited to the most luxurious KTV in Beijing, Las Vegas, for a karaoke session. Yun Shishir's heart skipped a beat. Las Vegas? It was said that it was the most expensive entertainment club in Beijing. The smallest private room inside had 2 floors and was especially luxurious. Out of curiosity, she wanted to go and see what the most luxurious entertainment club in Beijing was like. Hence, she gave Mu Yaja a very cute, expectant, and yearning look. Her sparkling eyes were like a little puppy trying to please him. Mu Yaja's eyes twitched fiercely. The thought of going to the KTV to listen to those old men wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves, those strange lights, those deafening sound effects, and those fawning faces gave him a terrible headache. However, she seemed to want to go. Mu Yaja said, "It can't be too late." Everyone cheered, but when they saw the boss's icy gaze, they immediately shut their mouths. Mu Yaja and Yun Shishir were escorted to Las Vegas by a group of people, as if they were the stars surrounding the moon. Upon hearing that the CEO of Dishing Financial Group was coming, the manager of Las Vegas booked the biggest KTV room for them. Yun Shishir held Mu Yaja's hand in amazement. She looked left and right, feeling that everything was new to her. After all, she rarely came out to play. When she was in university, it was popular for her classmates to gather and sing together, but she didn't have much time to go out and play. Mu Yaja glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. He saw that the corners of her lips were slightly raised. Even Mu Yaja, who was in a bad mood, couldn't help but be affected by her cheerful mood. Even the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Since this woman liked it, he would let her do it this time. The waiter respectfully led them into the KTV room. The moment they stepped in, Yun Shishir let go of Mu Yaja's hand. Mu Yaja couldn't help feeling a little stunned. Looking down at his suddenly empty hand, he suddenly felt a little disappointed. Chapter 998. Yun Shishir had never seen such a high-class entertainment venue. It had a huge LCD screen and 3 levels of high-end sofas. It was like a small opera house. There were 12 microphones alone. The luxurious facilities were amazing. Looking around, there was not only a small bar on the first floor, but there was also a wine cabinet, a small stage, 2 private bathrooms, 2 small living rooms, and a private room. After wandering around the private room, Yun Shishir returned to Mu Yaja's side. Just as the men were about to start singing, Yun Shishir looked up at Mu Yaja and said, "The so-called most luxurious entertainment venue in Beijing is just a so-so. Let's go back." Mu Yaja's lips twitched. Everyone almost fell down and vomited blood. Didn't she know that it cost 1,000 yuan an hour here? Didn't she know that in order to please Mu Yaja, they had already thought of their own songs along the way? This girl must be toying with them. Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. "You're leaving just like that?" Yun Shishir pursed her lips and said, "You look very tired, so I want you to rest early." Mu Yaja's eyes warmed. So it was because of this. Hence, he smiled. That smile was the most dazzling in the world. It was charming and moving. Let's sit for a while more. He would just take it as accompanying her. Mu Yaja staying behind was naturally something that everyone was happy to see. However, as he stayed behind, something happened. Although these old fellows were not young anymore, they were still full of vigor. In order to please Mu Yaja, they had even taken out the 18th class's signature song. Yun Shishir could still bear it at first, but the more she listened, the more she couldn't sit still. "My passion, hey. Like a fire. Ha. Burning the entire desert. Ah ha." At this moment, the big boss of an electronics company took off his suit jacket and held a microphone in one hand. He opened his mouth and howled like a wolf. Every time he sang a line, everyone would shout along, and the atmosphere could be considered to have reached a climax. However, on the other side, it was already covered in ice and snow. What was a lonely old man's KTV? This was probably it. Muyaja, who was sitting in the main seat, was still relatively calm. His face was still able to maintain a calm and composed expression. Yun Shishir, on the other hand, felt as if she had been struck by lightning when this man sang. She wanted to laugh, but she couldn't show too much of an expression. Otherwise, it would be disrespectful to others. Even when he was about to sing, she still had to praise him against her will. CEO Wang, I didn't expect you to have such a good voice. Oh no, she suddenly regretted staying. When the song was finally over, Yun Shishir collapsed on the sofa and heaved a sigh of relief. She could not even laugh as her stomach hurt terribly from holding it in. Then, a few people pushed the microphone to a relatively young man. It was said that he was the son of a consortium. Everyone praised him, saying that this young master sang well. This song, a Chinese ghost story, was earth-shattering. It was like heaven and earth, but not on earth. A Chinese ghost story. Was it Zhang Guorong's? Yun Shishir was instantly interested. This song was very nice. It was affectionate and pleasant to the ears. It was a classic among classics. However, when the man opened his mouth, Yun Shishir was so frightened by his voice that her legs turned to jelly. This song really gave off the feeling of a ghost when he sang it. Chapter 999. Who was the one who sang such an earth-shattering song? That's right, this man's song was simply earth-shattering. Demonic sound, devastation, devastation, it was simply a heavy blow to her body and mind. After he finished singing, Yun Shishir clutched her chest with some internal injuries, but she still forced a smile and gave him a thumbs up. She sighed and said, this song should only exist in the heavens. Admirable, really admirable. The man was a little embarrassed by her praise. He scratched his head and smiled embarrassedly. Thus, after sitting for half an hour, the demonic sound bombarded Yun Shishir one after another. At first, she was a little unsettled, but gradually, she became numb. Miss Yun, aren't you going to sing a song for young Master Mu? Since you're here, show us what you can do. No one dared to ask Mu Yaja to sing, but this woman seemed easy to talk to, so they all encouraged her. Yun Shishir pursed her lips and waved her hand. She smiled and said, I'd better not sing. Muyaja suddenly smiled and said, I want to hear it. Yun Shishir was stunned and turned her head mechanically. No way, he's just going to undermine me like this. With Muyaja's words, everyone became bolder and more enthusiastic. Miss Yun. Young Master Mu has already said, just sing one song. That's right, don't be shy, we're all on the same side. On the same side. On the same side my ass. But, Yun Shishir suddenly walked to the karaoke machine and sat down. Since Muyaja wanted to hear it, then she would take care of it. She chose Mo Wenwei's song, which was also Yun Shishir's favorite and the most emotional song. The lyrics were very touching. There were many different versions of this song. She had heard Chi Chin sing it since she was young, but she preferred Mo Wenwei's version. She picked up a clean microphone at the side, those men didn't spit on her, and sat on the small stage. The quiet piano music suddenly played, and the huge private room suddenly became silent. Holding the microphone, Yun Shishir sang along with the accompaniment of the music affectionately. A long, long time ago, you owned me, and I owned you. A long, long time ago, you left me to soar in the distant sky. The outside world was very exciting. The outside world was very helpless. When you think the outside world is wonderful, I will give you my best wishes here. Every time the sun sets, I always look forward to you here. Although it was raining in the sky, I am still here. Waiting for your return. Yun Shusher's voice was very soft, but it faintly revealed a sense of vicissitudes, floating, ethereal and mellow, so it was very suitable for such a quiet song. She sang very emotionally and was very engrossed in the song. She was like an affectionate singer who used her soul to interpret the song. She sang this song as if it was her own song. Everyone was deeply attracted by this beautiful voice. Even Muyaja's eyes could not help but darken a little. The meaning of the lyrics of this song was very simple, but it was beautifully written and very sad. These people were the bosses of big companies. Some of them had inherited the family business and lived a wealthy life. When they entered society, they faced competition and were tortured to the point that they lost their pride. No matter how tired they were, they could only endure. Chapter 1000. Everyone had a disease, and that was to reminisce. It wasn't too cold at the top. Even though these people were wealthy, they all had sorrowful pasts. Thinking about this life filled with regret, sorrow, and uncertainty, it made one sigh endlessly. Even though they were all iron-blooded men and were used to the fickleness of society, no matter how hard a person's heart was, there would always be a weakness. This song couldn't help but remind them of their sorrowful pasts, and those who listened were all moved. Muyaja listened to the song, and his gaze gradually became blurry. He suddenly looked at Yun Shusher, who was sitting on the stage. At that moment, she was sitting there quietly, and the lights were quietly shining on her body. Half of her face was buried in the shadows and couldn't be seen clearly, but he could feel a little pain from her singing. In just a moment, her singing revealed a vulnerability that was usually hard to detect, and it made people's hearts ache. After the song was finished, the room was strangely quiet. Some of the people sitting on the sofa held their foreheads and cried silently, while others held their sour noses, their eyes filled with bitterness. Yun Shusher stood up in embarrassment. Surrounded by the lights, she couldn't see what was going on in her seat. However, just as she stepped off the stage, she was pulled into a pair of strong arms. She looked up in shock and saw Muyaja's handsome side profile. Her heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively followed her heart's desire and wrapped her arms around his shoulders. "Why didn't I realize before that you can sing so well?" "That's because you've never heard me sing before." Suddenly, sparse applause came from the second floor. Gradually, everyone started clapping vigorously, and they were sincerely amazed by Yun Shusher's song. Yun Shusher then realized that they were still in the KTV, so she shyly pushed Muyaja and muttered softly, "Hey, there's someone here." At that moment, the people upstairs saw such a heartwarming scene, so they took the opportunity to encourage, "Let's sing another song. You sing so well. Master Mu, why don't you give us some face and sing a song with Miss Yun Shusher?" Hearing this, Yun Shusher slowly raised her head. Her eyes were bright and her cheeks were red. She said longingly, "Yes. Why don't you sing a song too? I want to hear it too." As she said this, she blinked her eyes as if she had thought of something romantic. Then, she said excitedly, "Come on, come on. Let's sing together. Just sing 'I Miss You.'" Muyaja, this song was a duet between a man and a woman. It was sung by Gu Xingze and Su Xintian. As soon as the song was released, it reached the top of the album bestseller list. Muyaja turned his face away and said coolly, "I won't." He didn't want to sing those little love songs with lyrics like, "I love you, you love me, you love me." Yun Shusher glared at him. How could she believe his words? "No. You definitely can. In any case, you have a management company under your name. How can a person who manages artists not know how to sing?" She even tried to goad him, but young Master Mu was dismissive of her little tricks. He glanced at her from the corner of his eyes and said firmly, "I won't sing." Yun Shusher looked aggrieved and resentful, but Muyaja ignored her. Chapter 1001. Who's going to sing this song with me? Mu Yaja listened to the melodious music in a daze. He looked at the MV on the screen and raised his eyebrows in disbelief. This stupid woman dared to sing a love song with someone else in front of him. She was asking for death. Mu Yaja turned his head coldly. His pair of cold and terrifying eyes swept across the crowd. His expression seemed to say, "Who dares to take the microphone?" It was as if whoever dared to sing this song with Yun Shishir would be crushed by the Mu group tomorrow morning. When the crowd saw his sharp and cold eyes, they thought of their own businesses and naturally did not dare to offend this man. How would they dare to care about Yun Shishir? The young man who sang a Chinese ghost story was about to happily take Yun Shishir's microphone when the man who was on good terms with him immediately tugged at his sleeve and signaled to Mu Yaja with his eyes. The latter looked in the direction of his gaze and saw a certain man staring at his hand expressionlessly. His gaze was as sharp as a sword. Oh my God, so scary. It was as if he wanted to kill someone. The man was shocked. His back was soaked in cold sweat and his forehead was full of black lines. He immediately withdrew his hand. Yun Shishir looked at him in confusion. He simply looked down and pretended to be dead. She suddenly realized something and slowly turned her head around. She saw the man's frosty gaze, which was as cold as an iceberg. This man was too domineering, wasn't he? He didn't want to sing with her and he didn't even give her the right to find a partner. He didn't want her to sing, but she insisted on singing. Thus, in a fit of pique, Yun Shishir sat on the sofa and started singing along with the music. One moment, she sang the boy's part in a low voice, and the next, she sang the girl's part in a high-pitched voice. She sang this little love song aggressively and fiercely, making it sound like a revolutionary march. It was as if she was about to rush to the battlefield and kill everyone in the next moment. A good song, "I Miss You," was sung to "I Want to Chop You." This time, it was everyone's turn to be in a world of ice and snow. Mu Yaja was very satisfied. When she finished singing, he didn't forget to float a sentence, "You sang very badly." Yun Shishir was so angry that she almost threw the microphone on the sofa. When they came out of the KTV, Yun Shishir was still a little unhappy. Mu Yaja walked in front with large strides, and she followed behind him slowly. She was unwilling, and her eyes were filled with resentment, like a resentful woman in the palace. "You're not even willing to sing with me, Mu Yaja, you're the worst." Mu Yaja walked in front and heard Yun Shishir grumbling bitterly. She seemed to be complaining and complaining at the same time. That resentful look on his face was as if he had done something extremely heinous. It wasn't that he was unwilling, but he had never sung before. Since he was young, he had many opportunities to go to KTV or audiovisual entertainment centers, but he had never opened his mouth. When he grew up and took over the company, with his prominent position, who would dare to invite him to sing? Chapter 1002. Mu Yaja could not help curling his lips into a smile when he saw that she was still sulking. Yun Shishir saw that there was a deeper meaning in his smile and misunderstood that he had some bad intentions or that he was unhappy with her squeamishness. Thus, she quickly put on a coquettish smile and probed, "What's wrong with you?" "Nothing." His large palm caressed her forehead. Mu Yaja smiled devilishly. "Are you still angry?" Yun Shishir snorted coldly. "I just want to hear you sing. You can't even fulfill such a small wish of mine." Mu Yaja looked at her seriously from head to toe as though he was disgusted. Yun Shishir's face was completely dark. "You must be tone deaf. That's why you refuse to sing." The man raised his brows slightly. "No matter how tone deaf I am, I still sing better than you." Seeing that Yun Shishir was silent, Mu Yaja couldn't help but smile. He reached out slightly and pulled her into his embrace with his long arms. He caressed her forehead lovingly and smiled. "All right. Let's go home." Yun Shishir couldn't help but smile because of his action. She felt sweet and satisfied. This man's palm wasn't as cold as it used to be. It was very warm. She was a little greedy for the warmth of his palm. Yun Shishir took the initiative to reach out and grab his hand, interlocking their fingers tightly. Mu Yaja smiled and held her hand. This action warmed Yun Shishir's heart again. She smiled and held his hand even tighter. Her heart was filled with satisfaction. She thought that it would be great if they could continue like this. She wanted time to stop at this moment when the two of them were holding hands. Late at night, it was quiet. The sky outside the window was dark. In the silence, the sound of the night breeze could be heard faintly. Xiao Yichen stealthily opened the bedroom door and leaned all the way to the master bedroom. He pressed his ear against the door and listened carefully for a while before quietly sneaking back into the bedroom. Yun Tianyu, in his casual attire, stood by the window with his hands in his trouser pockets. Xiao Yichen walked behind him and said with a smile, "Daddy and Mommy are already asleep." Shug, Yun Tianyu gave him a sidelong glance and signaled, "Go and lock the door." "Yes." Little Yichen locked the bedroom door from the inside. Yun Tianyu pulled open the floor-to-ceiling window, and the two lads jumped out of the room from the balcony. They then went around the backyard and left the villa. At the entrance of the villa, Li Hanlan's car was parked quietly. Li Hanlan was called over by Yun Tianyu in the middle of the night. He could not hide his tiredness and yawned a few times. Yun Tianyu opened the car door and sat in the back seat with Xiao Yichen. Coincidentally, the little lad caught Li Hanlan's yawn and could not help raising a brow. "Agent Li, are you not awake yet?" Yu Yu's voice was deep. Li Hanlan shuddered at his words. He immediately sat up straight and pretended to be energetic. "No. I'm still energetic." "That's good." Yu Yu snorted. Xiao Yichen added, "Don't drive when you're tired." Li Hanlan broke out in a cold sweat. These two lads knew a lot. "Director Yun, where are we going?" Li Hanlan turned his head and asked with a fawning look. Yun Tianyu leaned against the back of the seat elegantly with his arms crossed. With a cold expression, he answered, "King Lin Bar." "What are you going to do?" Li Hanlan saw that his eyes were cold, and he seemed to be aggressive. "You're in charge of driving." Chapter 1003. Xiao Yichen sneered, clenched his fists, and flexed his muscles. "Uncle, we don't have much time. We have to rush back in 2 hours. Don't dawdle." Li Hanlan's lips twitched violently. He stepped on the accelerator and the car sped away. Just as the car reached the entrance of the bar, Li Hanlan was frightened by the lineup before him. Not far from the bar's entrance stood a few hooligans. They looked like delinquents. At a glance, there were about a dozen of them. They looked rather stylish. Hooligans. Li Hanlan was still in disbelief when he saw Yun Tianyu push open the door and get out of the car with Xiao Yichen. "Director Yun, where are you going?" "Wait in the car. Don't follow me." Yun Tianyu turned around and gave this order. Even though Li Hanlan was full of doubts, he still obeyed the order and waited in the car. Yun Tianyu and Xiao Yichen walked over. Li Dongqiang saw them and immediately welcomed them with a fawning smile. "Little brother, you're here. Why are there so many people here?" Yun Tianyu frowned, clearly surprised. Li Dongqiang pursed his lips and smilingly said, "I'm afraid that we don't have enough manpower." "It's okay, we're all brothers. It's no big deal to have more people here. It's a show of strength." He paused, raised his eyebrows, and carefully probed, "Little brother, are you looking for me to teach someone a lesson?" Yun Tianyu suddenly lowered his head expressionlessly and casually took out a Givenchy wallet. Li Dongqiang's eyes widened at the sight. This wallet was exquisitely made and seemed to be a branded one. It must be worth a lot. Looking at the thick stack of cash in the wallet, Li Dongqiang's mouth watered even more. This little guy was really not simple. He carried so much cash with him everywhere. Li Dongqiang's eyes involuntarily revealed a greedy look. Yun Tianyu coldly glanced at him, and Li Dongqiang guiltily retracted his gaze. Li Dongqiang took out a check that had already been filled in but had yet to be signed. However, when Li Dongqiang received it and saw the generous amount on the check, he was shocked. His mouth watered. So much. You think it's too much? Yun Tianyu raised a brow. It's nothing. Money can only be too little, how can it be too much? Li Dongqiang said with a flattering smile. At the same time, he secretly verified the authenticity of the check. You don't have to look at it. Do you think I'll give you a fake check? Yun Tianyu seemed to have seen through his suspicions. The check hasn't been signed yet. Yun Tianyu gave a concise reply. Once you've settled this matter, we'll be even. Good. Then, what orders do you have? Li Dongqiang rubbed his hands and asked. Yun Tianyu suddenly fished out a Sony DV from his backpack and tossed it to him. Li Dongqiang caught it and lowered his head to look at the DV in his hand. He was a little confused. This is, cut the crap and listen to my instructions, he ordered. Li Dongqiang didn't dare to say anything. It was late at night. Some youths began to stagger out of the bar one after another. The unrestrained nightlife was over. It was time to return to the nest. Lu Jingtian was already dead drunk by the time she was helped out. Chapter 1004. Many of Yun Shishir's fans even meticulously watched every detail of the show and made gifs of all the little tricks she had done to Yun Shishir, which went viral on Weibo. Following this, netizens began to denounce her with righteous indignation. Many of them even dug out her family background. As a newcomer who had just debuted, her acting skills had always been questioned. Ostracizing fellow actors and bullying newcomers, netizens dug up all kinds of things about her past. As such, the army of public opinion crushed her pitiful fan club overnight. No matter how the PR team behind her tried to clear her name, the netizens did not seem to buy it. Instead, they accused her of using Yun Shishir to hype herself up. Hype. Hype. She used Yun Shishir to hype herself up. She was really wronged in this regard. Indeed, artistes needed exposure. Many would even use scandals to hype themselves up. Lu Jingtian was different, though. She had always been very concerned about her image in front of the public. Her team also intended to create an image of her as a pure starlet, trying their best to cover up her dark spots so that she could present a better side to the public. Unfortunately, she did not live up to expectations. Her scandals exploded on the internet one after another. It was simply one after another, too many to enumerate. Lu Jingtian has no acting skills to speak of. She's not even worthy of being called a vase. She's so ugly and unrecognizable. One look at her nose and eyes and you can tell that she's based on a baby. The key is that she hasn't done the surgery yet. How can she compare to Shishir? She's quite scheming, huh? Doge, at the very least, vases are good-looking and exquisite. How can that ugly woman be called a vase? Don't insult a vase. Is it that exaggerated? I've seen the trailer for The Green Apple, and she looks pretty good in it. That's just makeup, okay? I saw her barefaced face in a candid photo taken at the airport. It's unspeakably ugly. She looks like an old woman without makeup. The reason why she can get so many resources when she debuted is because her father is a senior executive in Huanyu. This is a classic example of opening the back door. I heard that when Lu Jingtian debuted in the past, she wanted to tie her name to Gu Xingze for publicity purposes. Gu Xingze didn't even look at her. Nonsense. If Gu Xingze and Lu Jingtian are tied together to create hype, it'll be so degrading. Gu Xingze is wise. If Lu Jingtian uses him to create hype, he'll lose millions of fans. Auntie Lu, you're so ugly. On Weibo, forums, and Tiba, there were different versions of her scandal every day. In fact, there were plenty of actresses in the entertainment industry who were more scheming than her. They usually kept a low profile and carefully hid their flaws. Alas, this time, she could not avoid it because she was truly stupid. The Green Apple had not yet been released, but it had already gathered a large number of fans of the original novel. As the winter/summer couple, many fans of the original novel were very supportive of Gu Xingze and Yun Shishir being a couple. Lu Jingtian had interfered and ostracized Yun Shishir on the show. Was she not inviting criticism for herself? Chapter 1005. As a result, she was in a bad mood these few days. She spent several nights at the bar, feeling dispirited. Her friend helped her to the door when she suddenly felt her insides churning. Pushing her friend away, she stumbled to the entrance of the alley and vomited while leaning against the wall. Her friend frowned. Accompanying this willful missy out for a drink was really a tough task. He walked to the intersection and hailed a taxi, but she was nowhere to be seen. He could not help but feel strange. When he reached the entrance of the alley, a fishy smell hit him in the face. He immediately covered his nose and mouth and shone his phone's flashlight on the ground, only to see a puddle of vomit on the ground. Beside it, a bag had fallen to the ground. He picked up the bag. It belonged to her, but she was nowhere to be found. Where did she go? He looked all around but couldn't find her. He was immediately frustrated. A black car sped along the road. Li Dongjiang's eyes darted to the rearview mirror as he drove. Yun Tianyu sat in the front passenger seat while Xiao Yichen sat in the back seat. Beside him was the unconscious Lu Jingtian. She lay limp in the seat with her hands and legs tied tightly with ropes. Her eyes and mouth were covered with a black cloth. Li Dongqiang was deeply shocked. Is this a kidnapping? How exciting! This lad is so daring at such a young age. Although he was in the triad, he was, at best, a hooligan. He had done many petty thefts, but there were some things he dared not do. Even though he had killed people before, they were all civilians. He looked at this woman, who was dressed in branded clothes and seemed to be rich, and could not help but feel nervous. He was a typical bully and feared the strong. He was most afraid of offending big shots that he should not offend. He had learned his lesson from offending Yun Shishir the last time. Thus, he asked, if we do this, won't we blow things up? What are you afraid of? Yun Tianyu gave him a sidelong glance and casually asked, you're so timid, yet you're still in the triad. Li Dongqiang replied resentfully, although I'm in the triad, I still haven't made a name for myself. I have to take a detour whenever I meet those big shots. At this moment, he was completely unaware that there was a major character sitting beside him. Although this big shot was a little young, Yun Tianyu snorted and did not bother with him again. Li Dongqiang still wanted to say something, but Yun Tianyu cut him off impatiently. Cut the crap. I'm letting you do this, so naturally, I can ensure that nothing happens to you. His tone was like that of a king, shocking Li Dongqiang. Were all kids these days so powerful? His methods were even more professional than his. Xiao Yichen, who was standing behind him, seemed to have transformed into Yu Yu's little fanboy. This little brother of his was really amazing. His style of doing things was just like his father, ruthless and merciless. He liked it. He turned to look at Lu Jingtian and snorted. He didn't like people who bullied his mommy. Therefore, he would not show any mercy. The car sped to a stop on East Street. Li Dongqiang, who was guarding a gambling den, alighted from the car and carried her into a small, dark room inside. As soon as he entered the room, Li Dongqiang threw him onto the bed. The bed was made of metal and was very hard. Li Dongqiang did not go easy on her. With a toss and a bump, she woke up with a start. However, perhaps because she had drunk so much, she was still drunk and had yet to recover her senses. Chapter 1006. A basin of cold water was the first to splash on her. The piercing coldness made her more clear-headed, and she opened her eyes abruptly. The black cloth covering her eyes fell off. Her vision slowly overlapped and became clear again. The dark room was airtight, and only a weak chandelier was lit. Hence, she could not see clearly where she was at that moment. The chandelier was an ordinary chandelier. It swayed gently from time to time, causing the room to flicker with light and shadow. It reminded one of the classic scenes in horror movies. Lu Jingtian shuddered in fright and sat up abruptly on the bed. Unaware that her limbs were tied up, she lost her balance and rolled off the bed. "Ugh!" she cried out in pain. Li Dongqiang glanced at her coldly and signaled with his eyes. His men walked forward and threw her back on the bed. "Ugh, ugh, ugh!" She opened her mouth in shock, but it was gagged, so she could not make any sound. She could only whimper as if she were begging for mercy. Yun Tianyu and Xiao Yichen entered the room as well. Li Dongqiang immediately ordered someone to bring a sofa chair over. Yun Tianyu sat on it and slowly raised his head to meet Lu Jingtian's frightened eyes. When Lu Jingtian saw Yun Tianyu and little Yichen, for some reason, her fear faded a little. It was hard for people to be wary of those weaker than them. She was still wondering who had kidnapped her here, but when she saw Yun Tianyu and little Yichen, she was no longer so afraid. Instead, her tense emotions relaxed a little. Still, it was not without surprises. How could it be these two rascals? Were they the ones who tied her up and brought her here? How did these two rascals manage to do it? What did these strange, ferocious-looking men have to do with the two children? She was full of doubts. In her eyes, Yun Tianyu and little Yichen were merely 7-year-old children. They had not even graduated from kindergarten, so they could not do anything to her. She only saw this inexplicable scene as a farce. Alas, she was wrong. Some people looked weak, but they were not necessarily weak. On the contrary, it could be very powerful. Yun Tianyu glanced at her. His eyes were extremely cold and his face was filled with disgust. He stared at her and asked, "Are you awake?" His voice was so cold that it was as if 10,000 feet of ice had frozen over. Lu Jingtian nervously shook her head subconsciously, but when she realized what he was asking, she hesitantly nodded her head. Little Yichen sneered from the side. "Bad woman." Lu Jingtian was infuriated. Just as she was about to lash out at him, she realized that her mouth was gagged and could only let out a few muffled moans. Yun Tianyu ordered, "Let her talk." Thus, Li Dongqiang walked forward and removed the gag from her mouth. Lu Jingtian was finally able to speak, and the first thing she said was explosive. "Hey! You two brats, what are you trying to do? Why did you tie me up and bring me here? What kind of game are you playing with me?" She was originally dead drunk. After vomiting out a stomach full of filth, she had just sobered up a little when she was knocked out by a stick. When he woke up, he was splashed with a basin of ice water. Naturally, he became more clear-headed. However, the alcohol did not completely subside. She spoke very harshly in her drunken state. Chapter 1007. Hurry and loosen the rope. Let me go home. She demanded fiercely, purely trying to scare them. Yun Tianyu smiled. The game isn't over yet, how can I let you go home? Lu Jingtian was taken aback by his mature tone and cold words. If you two rascals continue to mess around, I'll tell your daddy. Ha! Yun Tianyu sneered and then leisurely said, fine. Go ahead and sue them. She was stunned. Aren't you afraid that your daddy will spank you? She clearly did not realize what was going on, so she was at a loss for a moment. What were these two rascals up to? Xiao Yichen, isn't she disgusting? Yun Tianyu suddenly turned his head and asked. Xiao Yichen spat, she's disgusting. He paused for a moment before adding, anyone who bullies mommy is guilty of the most heinous crime. Finally, he used the right idiom. This was not the main point, though. The main point was that there was no need to hide the murderous look in Xiao Yichen's eyes. She was frightened by his gaze. What are you guys trying to do? Thanks to you, mommy has 32 wounds on her body. Today, I'll pay you back double. With that, Xiao Yichen stepped forward and grabbed his mother's hair. In the past, he was extremely disdainful of using such despicable means like grabbing someone's hair. However, his younger brother said that he would give her a taste of her own medicine. Since his mommy's hair was ripped off, there was no need for him to be merciful. He wanted this evil woman to have a taste of the pain of having her hair ripped off. Lu Jingtian shrieked in pain at the sharp pain coming from her scalp. Ah! What are you guys trying to do? Let go. It's painful. Xiao Yichen did not waste any more words. He grabbed her hair and threw her to the floor. She did not know where this kid got his strength from. She weighed more than 50 kilograms, yet he lifted her with one hand. What are you guys doing? She shrieked. Her ear-piercing scream reverberated through the room. So noisy. Yun Tianyu frowned in disgust. Li Dongqiang immediately understood and stepped forward to cover her mouth again. Xiao Yichen said angrily, bad woman, you know pain too. But I saw that when you bullied my mommy, you didn't hold back either. Lu Jingtian continued to whimper, as if she finally understood that the two were here for revenge and realized the seriousness of the matter. Xiao Yichen was about to make a move when he saw the woman's face, which was filled with fear and hatred, and suddenly felt awkward. He suddenly put down his fist and returned to Yu Yu's side with a gloomy expression. He pouted and looked unhappy. What's wrong? Yu Yu glanced at her. Disgusting. My hands are dirty, Xiao Yichen said with a frown. Besides, if I touch her, her bones will fall apart. These words were not wrong. Xiao Yichen's punch was equivalent to 80% of a grown man's strength. What kind of concept was that? If he punched her more than 20 times, she would surely have a few broken bones. Moreover, he was a man. It was rather ungentlemanly for a man to hit a woman. He was not like that Song Yunxi, who was ungentlemanly. Lu Jingtian inexplicably heaved a sigh of relief when Xiao Yichen stopped hitting her. Yun Tianyu glanced at Li Dongqiang and said, you can go ahead. Lu Jingtian's eyes widened in horror. She did not know what was in store for her. Chapter 1008. I'll wait for you outside. With that, he left with Xiao Yichen. Li Dongqiang let out a sinister laugh and slowly took a few steps toward Lu Jingtian. The fear in her heart increased exponentially. Initially, she thought that this was a prank by the two children, but now, she no longer thought so. He walked up to her, slowly squatted down, and removed the black cloth from her mouth. She got the chance to speak and immediately asked in horror, what are you trying to do? What am I trying to do? I'm going to do you. He grinned and spoke vulgarly. She was stunned for a moment, only to see him stand up and unbuckle his belt with one hand. What are you doing? You're raping me. Don't you dare do anything rash. Humph, he ignored her. Lu Jingtian's lips trembled as her eyes darted around in panic. She suddenly understood the current situation. If she were to maintain her overbearing attitude from before, she would not be able to escape. It was just a matter of dying a little faster. She did not understand what these two rascals wanted to do to her, but the murderous look in Yuntinho's eyes was definitely not a prank. She raised her head and looked at Li Dongqiang with a smile. How much do you want? Li Dongqiang froze. Those two rascals gave you the money, right? That's why you... Let me tell you, I have a background. My father is powerful and influential. You'd better not offend me. Otherwise, you'll regret it. This was the only possibility she could think of. Xiao Yichen was rich. Mu Yaja would usually give him tens of thousands of yuan as pocket money. How much did he give you? I'll give you double. This way. Can you let me off? She was so flustered that she could not speak coherently. Sure. If you can fork out double the amount he gave me, I'll let you off. He. Li Dongqiang was naturally not one to make a losing deal. He squatted down as if to negotiate with her. She calmed down and asked, how much did he give you? He took out the check from his trouser pocket and showed it to her. Lu Jingtian was stunned when she saw the words written in Chinese. Impossible. Where did he get so much money? Lu Jingtian chuckled. I think you've been fooled by those two kids. Think about it, they're barely 15 years old. Do you really think he can give you so much? She only suspected that Xiao Yichen was the one who gave her the money. She did not suspect you at all. Li Dongqiang raised his eyebrows. That's so much money. I can't afford it. In fact, if it was in the past, he would not have believed that a child could take out so much money. However, he had seen this child's strength before. Lu Jingtian was taken aback. Are you dumb? This piece of paper must be fake. It's just a fake check, and you're treating it like a treasure. He. What I'm giving you is real money. It's not something a fake check can compare to. Then, this is the number on the check. If you give it to me now, I'll let you go. Lu Jingtian was speechless for a moment before she flew into a rage out of humiliation. How can he have so much money? It's 7 digits, not thousands or tens of thousands. Chapter 1009. Lu Jingtian was infuriated and annoyed by his humiliation. She cried out indignantly, my dad is rich. Let me call him, he can fork out that much money right away. Smack. He gave her a tight slap across the face, causing her face to turn to the side. Are you F***ing kidding me? Call your dad. Then, call the police to arrest me. He. Woman, you have some tricks up your sleeve. He did not want to waste any more words with her. With a look, 2 of his men immediately stepped forward. One of them grabbed her chin tightly, while the other unscrewed the bottle in his hand and poured the drugged drink into her mouth. She struggled, but she did not have the chance to resist at all. Gulp. 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 Cough, cough. Cough, cough. Blurg, she choked badly, and the sweet drink overflowed from her mouth and nose. She raised her head with reddened eyes and glared at him. What did you make me drink? He. Don't worry, you'll find out soon enough. When the drug takes effect, the few of us won't be enough to cure you. It was the strongest drug in the black market, passion-hunting powder. The drug, which was used to deal with Yun Shishir, was now being used to deal with Lu Jingtian. A few minutes later, she felt dizzy all of a sudden, followed by a strange sensation coming from her body. Her body swayed slightly, and she felt her legs go limp. Not only that, a certain part of her body was acting up. She clamped her legs together and tried her best to hold it in as she perspired profusely. Her breathing suddenly quickened. The strange thing was that she had gulped down so much drink earlier, but her throat was very dry. Lu Jingtian was the spoiled and arrogant missy of a rich family. She had never seen such despicable tricks in society. Therefore, she thought that there was some kind of poison in the drink. It was only when she felt an inexplicable emptiness in her lower abdomen that she realized that the drink had been drugged. Lu Jingtian's chest heaved up and down. Under the constant stimulation of the drug, she felt a strange heat and her whole body went limp. The scenery in front of her eyes began to blur, and under a burst of dizziness, she couldn't even see Li Dongqiang's face clearly. She shook her head, but it did not matter if she did not shake. Instead, she fell headfirst to the ground. She did not feel much pain even when her head hit the floor. It was as if she was lying on a bed of cotton, and she felt as if she was floating in the air. She began to feel an urgent need to fill the emptiness. Gradually, she lost her consciousness and her gaze became blurry. Huff. Huff, I want. It's so hot. It's so hot. As she spoke, she giggled softly. Help me, please. It's so hot, and I feel so empty. Boo-hoo, Lu Jingtian's exquisite makeup was exceptionally seductive. Her beautiful eyes were hazy, and her face was flushed with a coquettish blush. Her red lips, which seemed to be budding, were especially seductive when they opened and closed. The drug had completely taken effect. It made her look like a delicate poppy flower that bloomed unscrupulously, almost mesmerizing his eyes. When the drug kicked in, he untied the ropes binding her limbs. Lu Jingtian looked at him in a daze as fine beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. Chapter 10:10. She lazily leaned against the bedside. Her coquettish look made Li Dongqiang's heart beat wildly. Gulp, he swallowed hard and was stunned for a moment before he suddenly remembered what Yun Tianyu had instructed him to do. He quickly turned on the camcorder and aimed it at the woman, who was trying her best to seduce him. The men beside him also stared unblinkingly at the coquettish woman in front of them. Their eyes narrowed with lust. Oh, God! It turned out that their boss had called them over for such a good thing. This was a lucrative job. At first, they thought that it was going to be a fling. Unexpectedly, he. Li Dongqiang walked over, squatted down, and reached out to pinch her hot and flushed cheeks. She pounced on him at once, wrapped her arms around his waist, and threw herself on top of him. She might have used too much strength, for he was suddenly pushed to the ground by her. She sat on top of him, grabbed his collar, and kissed him. The scent of her expensive perfume assaulted his nostrils. She kissed his cheeks, nose, and chin as her hands impatiently tickled his body. Li Dongqiang felt his whole body heating up. This was a blessing in disguise. It was not that he had never played with women before, but compared to this woman, it was unbearably vulgar. Lu Jingtian was not as pretty as Yun Shishir, but to Li Dongqiang, she was still a first-class stunner. The young man holding the camcorder could not help but feel his hands tremble as he looked at the hot scene before him. He was inevitably distracted and did not aim the camera properly several times. A few of them even took out their phones to take pictures. Lu Jingtian had no idea what she was doing. She only felt that hugging him was not enough to relieve the raging waves in her body. She followed her primitive instincts and moved step by step. Alas, she was still young and inexperienced, so how would she know what to do? Li Dongqiang, on the other hand, was so aroused that he could not bear it. His body was burning with fire, and he completely lost his patience. With a low growl, he flipped over and took the initiative. In no time at all, he took off her clothes. The fiery scenes were all captured by the camera. The young man on the side muttered vulgarly, "This woman is really coquettish." That eye-piercing scene was driving the subordinates who were waiting at the side crazy. However, boss hadn't finished enjoying it yet, so he naturally couldn't rush it. They had to do it one by one. In the casino, although it wasn't prime time, the 4 floors of the hall were still bustling with activity. Mixed with cheers and curses, it was an impassioned atmosphere. This was one of the biggest casinos on East Street. People often went bankrupt here overnight. Of course, there were also some lucky people who gained great wealth. However, in a casino like this, there were very few lucky people. After obtaining a huge fortune, most people would greedily throw themselves into the next battlefield with a fluke mentality. However, after a few twists and turns, they would often end up disappointed. No matter what your identity is, be it a boss or a commoner, as long as you have money, you can walk into this treasury and bet on your life. The casino was a unique cylindrical building. The ceiling and walls were classical and magnificent, just like a luxurious palace. Chapter 10-11. However, very few people dared to place bets at this table. Hence, to sit at this table, one had to bet at least 5 million yuan, and the chips would continue to rise as the game progressed. At this moment, however, no one was paying attention to whether someone was placing bets at this table. Everyone's eyes were on a little lad in a black shirt. This little boy, who was only 6 or 7 years old, had exchanged chips from the dealer half an hour ago. At that time, he only had a few 100,000 yuan worth of chips. The moment he entered the gambling hall, he walked to the French roulette with ease and placed tens of thousands of yuan on it. His nonchalant expression made it seem as if gambling, to him, was just a simple game. Xiao Yichen stood nervously beside Yu Yu. Earlier, he was bored waiting outside the door, so he said that he wanted to take a look around the casino. Seeing that it was interesting, he exchanged chips to relieve his boredom. At that time, no one paid much attention to him. Most of them thought that he was just an extremely naive little lad who dared to enter the casino after stealing so much money from somewhere. Gambling at such a young age, he was truly a wastrel. A kind-hearted person stepped forward to persuade him, but Yu Yu merely replied unhurriedly, "He. I'm just casually playing." Casually playing, this was a slang in the casino. Usually, those who said this were here to challenge the place. Which one of the people standing here hadn't gambled for more than 10 years? Without so many years of experience, who would dare to roll up their sleeves and roll the dice here? This little lad with a mere few 100,000 yuan, which was not even enough to open the table, dared to spout such arrogant words here. He was young and did not know the rules, yet he wanted to challenge the place. What a joke! Many people mocked and ridiculed him, but Yu Yu merely crossed his arms and leaned lazily against the table. His lips curled into a devilish smile as he pushed all the chips to the table, making people feel guilty. Staking it all on one throw. The banker's eyes could not help but reveal a trace of contempt. The roulette spun once, and everyone turned pale with fright. Unexpectedly, Yu Yu won the first round and earned a lot of money. Yu Yu accepted the bet without a change in his expression. His face was still wearing a nonchalant smile. His expression was calm, and yet, it was not a smile. He looked at the money he had won and shook his head helplessly. He said mildly, "I was just lucky." Under everyone's dumbfounded gaze, he immediately threw all his capital and the chips he won on the table, as if he was going to continue the game. The banker looked at him and thought to himself that it was just a fluke. There was no reason for him to continue winning. Everyone placed their bets, and after a few rounds, Yu Yu's chips became more and more impressive. In the beginning, the crowd looked down on him, but now they were all following him to place their bets. The fiery atmosphere in the gambling hall was a sharp contrast. Although he had won a lot of chips, the child's face was still calm. He only smiled and played with the chips in his hand. The banker's forehead was sweating, and he didn't dare to make a move. More and more gamblers followed behind Yu Yu, but the banker still did not place his bet. Yu Yu suddenly looked up. He raised a finger lazily and shook it gently. He said mildly, "You can't." Chapter 10-12. He had been in the casino for more than 20 years and had been playing since he was 10 years old. This lad was clearly trying to humiliate him. However, despite his anger, it was an undeniable fact that he had lost to a child. He had never lost so thoroughly in all his years of playing. He did not even have the will to fight anymore. The dealer pushed down his chips and simply admitted defeat. Yu Yu looked at him with a smile. A dealer in a purple uniform walked up to him and carefully collected all the chips he had won. Xiao Yichen whispered in his ear in disbelief, "Yu Yu, are you that good? You actually won more than a few million." Yu Yu glanced at him from the corner of his eyes and hooked his finger at him. Xiao Yichen leaned over. Yu Yu said flatly, "Idiot, I cheated." Xiao Yichen, in the small dark room, the atmosphere was heated. It was the time for endless battle. The first time was naturally accompanied by pain, but compared to the seemingly endless emptiness and stimulation in Lu Jingtian's body, it was nothing. With the guidance of the drug, she seemed to have turned into a flirtatious vixen. She twisted her body seductively and cooperated fully no matter what position he took. Li Dongqiang was the first to admit defeat and was somewhat helpless. It had to be said that this drug was really very strong. Even if it was a jade maiden, it could also turn her into a slut. While he was panting, Lu Jingtian came up to him again, panting heavily. The impatience on her face showed that she had no intention of giving up. Li Dongqiang did not want to do it at first, but the drug had yet to wear off, so he could not push her away no matter how hard he tried. Moreover, he had to take into account his male dignity in front of his underlings. Thus, he secretly took a pill, regained his manhood, and pounced on her anxiously. His breathing was chaotic. His breathing was disorderly. The scene was especially unbearable for a moment. The small iron bed kept shaking and creaking. Under the violent movements, it made a sinister sound. This was the rhythm of squeezing them all dry. Lu Jingtian had no idea what earth-shattering thing she was doing. Neither was she aware of the lewd expression on her face, nor was she aware of her high-pitched moans. It took a full 2 hours for the drug to wear off. 5 to 6 men took turns to do it before the drug finally wore off. Wasn't this drug too powerful? Wasn't this the rhythm of wanting to destroy him? The others were also exhausted, and the room was filled with the sound of panting. When things calmed down, Li Dongqiang felt that his waist was about to collapse. He threw himself onto the bed. His waist was sore and painful. It was simply unbearable. It seemed that this kind of thing should really be controlled. Now that his vitality was greatly damaged, it seemed that he would not be able to recuperate for 3 to 5 days. On the other side, the effects of the drug had subsided, and the fire in her body had mostly been vented. Lu Jingtian finally regained her senses, but when she saw the unbearable scene before her, she was first stunned before her face turned ghastly pale. What happened? Without waiting for her to react, a scream escaped from her throat. "Ah! You guys! You guys!" She held her face and screamed continuously. Suddenly, she realized that she was naked. Looking down, she realized that she was completely naked. This frightened her even more. Chapter 10:13. Only then did she realize with a start that she had lost her virginity. Oh, God, what's going on? She wanted to scream, but she was too frightened to do so. She blinked her eyes, and large droplets of tears rolled down her cheeks at once. What's going on? She hurriedly grabbed a piece of clothing from the side. She did not care whose it was, as long as it could at least cover her body. She was so frightened that her body kept retreating backward. Her pale face suddenly turned purple as her lips trembled uncontrollably. Humiliation. She felt a bone-chilling humiliation. She came from a well-to-do family, and her upbringing was very strict. Therefore, even when she grew up, she was like other girls who liked to play and make friends, but she always stuck to her bottom line. Her father taught her that a girl's chastity was the most important thing. But now, everything had been destroyed. She had actually lost her virginity to this group of ruffians at the bottom of society. Lu Jingtian's whole body trembled as she kept sizing up Li Dongxiang, who was sitting at the side and panting heavily. Her heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Women always had many beautiful fantasies about their first time. Alas, she would never have thought that her first time would be cruelly sullied by these ruffians in front of her. Looking at Li Dongxiang, looking at his dark skin, ugly and ferocious appearance, his body full of fat, and especially that fat and oily big belly, she was even more disgusted. At this moment, her face was as contorted as it could be. She bit her lower lip angrily, and the humiliation was so deep that it bled. B*****. You bunch of beasts. Shameless. Scumbag. Lu Jingtian cursed the moment she opened her mouth, using the most insulting words she could think of. Smack. Li Dongxiang gave her a slap. Slut. Who was the one who stuck to me just now? What's the point of being a B*****tch? D****m it. Shameless, he scolded. She held her burning cheek aggrievedly. Her eyes were red and swollen, and they were bloodshot as she glared at them hatefully. If you didn't use any underhanded means, do you think I'd be interested in you? All of you look like pigs. Shameless. B****tch. Lu Jingtian seemed to have lost her rationality as she let loose a torrent of abuse. Lu Jingtian scrambled to put on her clothes. Looking at the bruises all over her body, she was in a sorry state. She suddenly couldn't hold it in any longer and broke down in tears. She covered her face and deeply felt that she had no face to see anyone. Whoa. You bunch of beasts, scum. I hate you to death. The door suddenly opened. Yun Tianyu and Xiao Yichen walked in. Everyone in the room had put on their clothes, and the scene seemed calm. However, from the redness on their faces and the lingering charm in the air, Yun Tianyu knew that they had just experienced an intense battle. He laughed, but his expression was cold. Have you enjoyed yourself to your heart's content? Asked the boy in a calm and unhurried tone. Have you had enough fun? This brat. Chapter 10:14. It has nothing to do with my mommy. Xiao Yichen coldly snorted. Bad woman, you're the one who bullied my mommy first. We're just returning the favor. Lu Jingtian only felt embarrassed and ashamed, but more than that, she flew into a rage out of humiliation. Yu Yu's cold and mocking gaze almost drove her crazy. She completely lost her rationality. If she could, she really wanted to strangle him and tear his hateful face apart. She really couldn't wait to make these two brats disappear from her sight. B****st**rd. She rolled off the bed and pounced on Yun Tianyu. Yun Tianyu, however, did not move. He was not afraid of this crazy woman at all. Alas, she had forgotten about the chaotic battle she had just gone through. Just as her toes touched the ground, she felt her legs give way and fell to the ground with a plop. Her limbs were as heavy as lead, and she could not even lift her wrists. She was filled with resentment. Yun Tianyu smiled coldly and took a few steps toward her until he was right in front of her. He lowered his head and looked at her from above, admiring the changing expressions on her face. Humiliation, resentment, madness, pain, despair. Everything was in his eyes. He admitted that his method was indeed cruel. However, this was the only way to appease the hatred in his heart. He would never forgive anyone who touched his reverse scale. A pitiful person must have something to hate. Yun Tianyu told Li Dongxiang, send her back. Li Dongxiang nodded, but he was still panting heavily. He had yet to calm down and was on the brink of exhaustion. Yun Tianyu turned to leave, but he suddenly thought of something. He turned back and bent slightly. His cold and unfathomable eyes met with Lu Jingtian's dazed ones. Don't blame me for being ruthless if you dare to make a fuss about what happened today. Lu Jingtian was stunned. This child had a charisma that made one unable to look him in the eye. That pair of cold eyes actually oppressed her to the point that she couldn't breathe. I'll let you off today, but if you dare to bully my mommy again, Yun Tianyu paused and narrowed his eyes. Do you believe me? With just a word from me, the entire Lu clan will die without a burial ground overnight. Do you believe it? With just a word from me, the entire Lu clan will die without a burial ground overnight. These extremely bold words seemed to come from the mouth of an emperor who could summon the wind and summon the rain. Lu Jingtian's mouth was agape, but even after the two left, she still could not regain her senses. The fear in his heart was suddenly magnified. Lu residence. By the time she hailed a cab back to the Lu residence, it was almost dawn. She held back her tears and tightly clenched her fists. No matter how hard she tried to suppress herself, her shoulders couldn't stop trembling. She felt like a mermaid. Every step she took felt like she was walking on the edge of a sword. It was unbearably painful. She walked to the door and slowly pushed it open, only to be greeted by a brightly lit room. She was stunned and stood rooted to the ground. She saw Lu Bushing sitting on the sofa in the spacious living room. It seemed that he had been waiting for a long time. She was stunned for a few seconds. When she came to her senses, she quickly lowered her head and hurried upstairs. Stop right there. Lu Bushing bellowed majestically. Chapter 10-15. She shuddered and turned around with trembling lips. Pursing her lips, she did not bother to raise her head and only called out, "Dad." Usually, when she returned home late, her father would be long asleep. Why did she have to bump into him tonight? He asked coldly, "It's so late, where did you go? Why are you only back now? Do you still know that this house exists?" She felt countless grievances and despair choking her throat, making it difficult for her to speak. She once again recalled what had happened tonight, which made her feel extremely humiliated. The tearing pain deep in her body reminded her of the shame and anger she felt. Resisting the urge to break down, she said in a muffled voice, "I went out to play." She did not want anyone to know about this. Even her closest family did not want them to know about it. She was utterly disgraced. She was too ashamed to face anyone. If her father were to know that she had given her virginity to a group of unknown hooligans, he would be so angry that he would kill her. It was simply a nightmare. It was a stain that she could not erase no matter how hard she tried. "You went to the bar again." Lu Bushing snorted, clearly extremely dissatisfied. He was about to lecture her when she hurriedly said, "Dad, I'm tired. I'm tired, I'll go back to my room to sleep first." She tried to avoid him, but her father angrily said, "Stop right there. Did I allow you to leave?" She stood there awkwardly, sweating profusely from anxiety. "You want to leave before I'm done talking? Is this how you treat your elders? What time is it now? You only came back from playing, do you still have this house in your eyes?" As he lectured her, he said, "What are you waiting for?" It was clear that he was going to lecture her. How could she face him in her current state, though? She gritted her teeth and stayed where she was. Lu Bushing was even angrier. "What? I told you to come over, why aren't you moving? Have you grown wings after being a year older? What are you waiting for?" His sternness made her tear up even more. She suddenly started sobbing softly. She felt so embarrassed. If Lu Bushing were to see her like this, she would lose her last bit of dignity. Lu Bushing got even angrier. He suddenly got up, walked up to her, and grabbed her arm. Lu Jingtian stumbled and fell right in front of him. What he saw in front of him, however, greatly shocked him. Her exposed arms, shoulders, and collarbones were densely covered with all kinds of ambiguous marks of strangulation and kisses. Looking at her face, it was red and swollen. It was clear that she had been raped. When Lu Bushing saw everything clearly, he subconsciously slapped him in the face. Lu Jingtian could not take it anymore and fell to the ground. She lowered her head and let her hair cover her face in the shadows. You! What the hell are you doing? How did a girl end up like this? Lu Bushing was exasperated at her failure to live up to his expectations. His first reaction was that he had no idea who she was fooling around with again. Lu Bushing had high expectations for her, and he had always hoped that she could marry into a prestigious family. Prestigious families valued a girl's innocence the most. The way she was acting really disappointed him. Lu Bushing's rage made her feel ashamed and aggrieved. She held her face as her lips trembled. Large droplets of tears rolled down her pale cheeks, making one's heart ache for her. Chapter 10:16. Lu Bushing's rage made her feel ashamed and aggrieved. She held her face as her lips trembled. Large droplets of tears rolled down her pale face, making one's heart ache for her. Lu Bushing's heart ached as he looked at her haggard and disheveled appearance. He reached out to help her up, but she avoided his advances. She avoided his action, though. Suppressing her grievances, she got up from the floor and ran upstairs without looking back. Bang! The door was slammed shut. Lu Bushing lowered his head to look at his burning palm. He had used a lot of strength in his anger earlier. In a moment of anger, he had given her a slap. Now, he was filled with regret. Lu Bushing went upstairs to Lu Jingtian's room, only to hear her sobbing. Worried, he knocked on the door, but the crying stopped abruptly. Tian, it's Daddy's fault. I shouldn't have hit you. Open the door and tell Daddy what's going on, okay? Don't bother about me. Go away, just go away. She cried. Lu Bushing furrowed his brows, his heart burning with anxiety. Alas, she did not mention it to him at all. He sighed. Since it had already happened, there was no point in pursuing how it happened. He would properly interrogate her about this matter after she calmed down a little. Lu Bushing's footsteps gradually faded away. Only then did Lu Jingtian burst into tears. She walked into the bathroom and scrubbed her body over and over again. However, no matter how many times she used the shower gel and scrubbed her body vigorously, as if trying to scrape off a layer of skin, she still felt that her body was so dirty that it could not be washed clean. Thus, she hugged her body and squatted in the bathtub, crying helplessly. She thought that this matter would be over just like that. However, the next day, something unexpected happened. Lu Jingtian was still asleep in the morning. She came home late, took a shower, and cried under the blanket for a long time before she finally fell asleep. It was a call from Song Enya that woke her up. Where's Jingtian? Where are you now? Lu Jingtian was baffled by his question. She was still groggy from sleep, so she hoarsely replied, I'm at home. You're still sleeping. Song Enya was dumbfounded. She was still sleeping like nothing had happened even after such a big thing had happened. Lu Jingtian was even more confused now. I slept very late last night. Enya, what's wrong? From your tone, it sounds like something bad has happened. You'd better take a look at Weibo yourself. I only just found out. Hurry and take a look. The Missy's words gave her an ominous premonition. She quickly switched on the tablet and entered the Weibo app. The moment she opened the front page, she saw hashtag Lu Jingtian sexy photos hashtag dominating the headlines. Lu Jingtian was so shocked that she almost choked. She covered her mouth as her eyes widened in shock. It turned out that Li Dongqiang had recorded a complete video yesterday. After editing it, he had uploaded a few screenshots to the internet. Other than Lu Jingtian, everyone else had been censored out. In the screenshots, Lu Jingtian's hair was disheveled, and her expression was enchanting. Her facial features were so clear that one could almost tell who the woman in the video was at once. Lu Jingtian's hand, which was holding the tablet, trembled uncontrollably. Chapter 10:17. At first, the netizens were a little skeptical, thinking that it might just be a coincidence that someone looked similar to Lu Jingtian. Soon, a mysterious ID released an even higher resolution image. The netizens could see it more clearly. There was a very obvious feature on her face. There was a mole at the corner of her mouth. This feature instantly confirmed her crime. Her mind went blank with a bang, and she was petrified as if she had been struck by lightning. Soon after, the media published a few photos of her in a bar, which showed her rubbing her ears intimately with a stranger. Perhaps it was because of the angle, but her expression looked especially slutty. With a cigarette in one hand, she laughed and fell into the man's arms. She looked like a prostitute. Some paparazzi even took photos of her hugging another man in a bar. It was such a hot scene that people could not help but sigh. Lu Jingtian looked pure on the surface, but she was actually such a person in private. How despicable. The photos were quickly spread all over Weibo, and the public opinion about her instantly dropped to the lowest point. Oh, my God. Seeing such explosive news so early in the morning, my worldview has been turned upside down. Is Lu Jingtian so open? She seems to be quite fun in private, and she seems to be quite fierce. I'm from the capital. I once bumped into her at Sovereign Bar. She was with a man, and they were very close. I wanted to take a photo, but it was too dark, so I couldn't get a clear picture. I was also afraid of getting into trouble, so I didn't take a photo. I thought that she was just a scheming woman. I didn't expect her to be such a despicable woman in private. How disgusting. The netizens left comments saying that Lu Jingtian was a vicious and scheming woman. They had never seen such a shameless female celebrity before. The mysterious ID seemed to have left her some leeway by not releasing the video. Lu Jingtian was petrified and did not react for a long time. This time, she had fallen into a state of eternal damnation. All the public opinion was overwhelmingly accusing her of it. Lu Jingtian could not help but recall her private diary on a personal blog. Harboring hatred for Yun Shishir, she wrote in the diary, "If there's a chance, I must let Yun Shishir, that be *tch, have a taste of humiliation. First, drug her, then throw her to 5 hooligans. Finally, I'll record the whole process and post it online. Let everyone take a good look at the so-called national first love, in their eyes, how slutty and despicable she was in private." He. Was it an illusion? Why was her experience now exactly the same as the content of the private diary she had written on her blog? Could it be? Impossible. Her diary was a private diary that was locked. Other than her, no one else had seen it. Yun Tianyu received a call from Li Hanlin. According to his instructions, the latter had already finished editing the video and bribed various public relations teams to spread rumors about Lu Jingtian's indecent deeds on the internet. Later, remember to release the surveillance video. This is the highlight of the show. Yes. However, President Yun, don't you think you're being a little too ruthless? Chapter 10:18. The truth behind Lu Jingtian's pornographic photos. Look at those celebrities, who appear pure on the surface, in private. Lu Jingtian's pornographic photos scandal escalates. Lu Jingtian closes her Weibo account, guilty conscience. For the next few days, the scandal regarding Lu Jingtian's pornographic photos continued to fester. Recently, however, a small Weibo account suddenly released a short surveillance video. The video was very short, lasting only a few minutes. When the video was played, it showed Lu Jingtian beating up a woman in a hotel corridor. Although it was said to be a beating, the woman was indeed ruthless. The clip of Lu Jingtian beating up Yun Na like a madwoman shocked many people. The reason why they could recognize Lu Jingtian at a glance was that her gown was very recognizable, so it was not difficult to distinguish her. This was what Lu Jingtian wore to Huan Yu's gala, which was published in the newspapers. The Imperial Hotel's camera angle was very wide, and it was aimed at the corridor and the elevator door. There were 2 shots taken from different angles. When the first video was opened, it was still a little unclear. From this angle, one could only vaguely make out Lu Jingtian's back. As for the facial features of the person she was beating up, it was too blurry for one to recognize. When the second video was opened, it was aimed at the front of the 2 people. The angle was accurate, and the facial features were clear, so one could recognize Lu Jingtian at a glance. The shot was very clear, so Lu Jingtian's face was exposed. As soon as the video was released, it quickly attracted countless shares and views. In just a few minutes, it was read tens of thousands, and countless people fought to share it. Lu Jingtian's pornographic photos also reached a boiling point. Lu Jingtian's character was soon questioned from all sides. Oh, God! I didn't expect Lu Jingtian to be so violent. That woman is so scary. She looks like a lotus on the surface, but I didn't expect her to be so dark inside. Lu Jingtian is too scary. How can a woman like her be a celebrity? Lu Jingtian should get out of showbiz. An anonymous netizen put up a poll to hashtag Lu Jingtian get out of showbiz hashtag. At first, Lu Jingtian's team tried to calm the matter down. However, no matter how brilliant a team was, in the face of such an irrefutable fact, there was no room for negotiation. Yun Tianyo's PR team worked overnight to prepare a press release to smear Lu Jingtian's reputation. By then, she was already in a mess. Under the immense pressure of public opinion, under Lu Buxing's arrangement, Lu Jingtian left the country overnight to avoid the limelight. Lu Buxing had no idea what was going on, but he had been in the entertainment industry for many years, so he could more or less guess what was going on. His daughter must have offended some big shot, and that was why she was being suppressed. Alas, no matter how he interrogated her, she refused to divulge anything. She feared him from the bottom of her heart. Even though this was clearly a child under the age of 8, she could not help but feel terrified when she thought about the cause and effect of this matter. In just one night, this child was able to ruin her reputation effortlessly. No matter how he did it. Then, he would also have the ability to flatten the Lu clan with a single finger. Hence, she dared not speak up no matter what. Chapter 10:19. On the other hand, Yun Shishir was a little surprised by the uproar caused by Lu Jingtian's post on Weibo. She did not feel anything when she saw the articles bombarding Lu Jingtian on Weibo. It was an indescribable feeling. Lu Jingtian's fall did not give her much of a reaction. She only treated it as a piece of news and let it go after she read it. On this day, Mushi called her, unable to hide her excitement. The casting for Lethal Beauty seemed to have taken a turn for the better. The investor, who had seen her photo, seemed to be interested in her and invited her out for a meal to discuss the film contract. Mushi excitedly said, Sure, I've heard some insider news. Director Gu thinks highly of your acting skills and thinks that you can play the leading role, so he strongly recommended you to the investor. The investor saw your photo and thinks that your image is very suitable for the role, so he invited you out for a meal. The investor. There are 2 investors for Lethal Beauty. One is Qingguang Entertainment, and the other is Global Pictures, a very famous production company. Sure, do you want to give it a try? Who knows, you might succeed. It turned out that, although the producer had directly kicked Yun Shishir out of the list for that audition, Gu Xiaoyang was very satisfied with Yun Shishir's performance. Hence, he strongly recommended Yun Shishir to the head of Global Pictures, Sun Hua. Sun Hua watched Yun Shishir's audition video and was very satisfied with it, too. Her acting skills were explosive, and her eyes and expressions were very intense. Moreover, Gu Xiaoyang was full of praise for Yun Shishir, thinking that her acting skills were much better than Lin Ji's. Her aptitude was not bad and she was very photogenic. Hence, Sun Hua reported the situation to the higher-ups. At first, the higher-ups of Global Pictures gave an ambiguous reply, saying that they would discuss the matter before making a decision. Gu Xiaoyang really liked Yun Shishir and hoped to have a chance to use Yun Shishir in the future. Hence, he mentioned this matter to the higher-ups of Global Pictures. The Green Apple was going to be released soon. The box office was bound to be spectacular. Although Yun Shishir was a newcomer, her potential was immeasurable. After the release of The Green Apple, with the support of Gu Xingze and Lin Fengtian, Yun Shishir would definitely become famous overnight. At that time, Yun Shishir would definitely be more talked about than Lin Ji. In that case, Lethal Beauty would definitely benefit from The Green Apple. When the person in charge heard this, he was indeed very tempted. Indeed, although Lin Ji was a popular A-list actress, compared to Yun Shishir, Lin Ji's popularity was too high. After Lin Ji's debut, her reputation and popularity had been bountiful. However, the rumors about her were nothing. Yun Shishir's popularity soared as soon as she debuted. Even before the crew of The Green Apple released any behind-the-scenes footage, Yun Shishir's name would be on the hot search list. Hence, the higher-ups of Global Pictures decided to meet with Yun Shishir to discuss the casting of the role. Sun Hua then contacted Qin Zhou. Initially, when Qin Zhou learned that Global Pictures had invited Yun Shishir to a dinner party to discuss this matter, he hesitated for a moment before rejecting the invitation. Hence, Sun Hua thought of Mu Xi. When Mu Xi first received this news, she was overjoyed. Yun Shishir, on the other hand, was a little hesitant. Dinner party. Yun Shishir was inexplicably reminded of that dinner party where a young model had offered her body to the investors and producers in order to fight for resources. That unsightly scene was still fresh in her mind. Chapter 1020. Mu Xi, rejected for me. Ah. The assistant was stunned. Shishir, are you dumb? This is a rare opportunity. You must know that if you perform well and satisfy Worldwide's higher-ups, the production team of Lethal Beauty may decide to cast you. I have something on tonight, so I can't make it to the dinner party. Rejected for me. Yun Shishir said. Even though the assistant felt that it was a pity, she could not force the matter, so she gave him a tactful reply. When Sun Hua heard this result, he was so angry that he flared up. This Yun Shishir has just debuted, yet she's already putting on airs. Worldwide's higher-ups personally invited her, yet she rejected them without any hesitation. Is this appropriate? She's clearly acting like a big shot. When the news reached Worldwide's higher-ups, Li Dongliang, he gritted his teeth in anger when he heard that Yun Shishir was acting like a big shot and was not coming. Sun Hua gripped his phone tightly as he heard Li Dongliang's sarcastic remark. That woman's character is still a little high and mighty. Why? Is she looking down on Worldwide or me? She's putting on airs just because I asked her to have a meal with me. A taxi stopped steadily at the entrance of Global. Sun Hua got out of the car, smiled apologetically, and explained to the phone in a low voice, Mr. Li, don't be angry. Why get angry over a small actress? Don't you think so? On the other end, Li Dongliang sneered. Her. Why? I said that I wanted to treat her to a meal. Isn't that because I think highly of her? I've been in the industry for so many years, but I've never heard of such an actress. This Yun Shishir is a little arrogant. I think she's just looking down on me. After a pause, Li Dongliang continued, Sun Hua. How did you do your job? I asked you to treat her to a meal, and in the end, you gave me the cold shoulder. If word of this gets out, do you want Worldwide to become a joke? I think you're just messing with me. Sun Hua could not help but feel flustered and vexed. "Mr. Li, look at what you're saying. How would I dare to trick you?" The man snorted coldly and his voice was filled with anger. "This Yun Shishir has really opened my eyes. In any case, I don't care how you do it. In any case, you have to get back at me. Even if she came, she had to come. He had to come even if he didn't want to. Otherwise, you can scram." When Sun Hua heard this, he felt even more guilty. He hurriedly said, Boss Li, don't be angry. It's all my fault. How about this? Let's set the dinner for tomorrow night. I'll definitely bring the person to you. At that time, you can do whatever you want. What do you think?" The man suddenly laughed. "Sun Hua. At least you know how to appreciate favors. It's tomorrow night. Don't let me wait too long. I don't want to waste any more time. You know that I don't have much patience." Before Sun Hua could speak again, he hung up the phone. Sun Hua was also angry that Yun Shishir did not give him any face. She had just debuted and acted in a movie. It had not even been released yet, but she was already acting like a big shot. Li Dongliang had noticed her and invited her to a meal because he thought highly of her. One had to know that this dinner was not for just anyone. Many female celebrities were lining up but did not get a turn. When it came to Yun Shishir, she rejected it with one sentence. What was the meaning of this? Chapter 1021. When Li Dongliang saw the photo, he was stunned. However, Sun Hua showed him the audition tape. Li Dongliang naturally did not care about the audition. He was a capitalist. Being involved in the film industry was just a branch of his investment. He did not care about whose acting skills were good. He only cared about the return of the investment. That was all. Qingguang Entertainment and Worldwide Entertainment jointly invested in Lethal Beauty. Qingguang Entertainment intended to promote Lin Ji and internally selected her as the female lead. Li Dongliang did not care who the female lead was, so he did not have any objections. Before this, in order to please Li Dongliang, Qingguang Entertainment specifically instructed Lin Ji to fight for Li Dongliang's approval. After being in the entertainment industry for 3 years, Lin Ji was not as ignorant as she was when she first debuted. Naturally, she knew the benefits involved. She was also very obedient and sensible. She accompanied Li Dongliang for 2 nights and served him well. Li Dongliang was naturally satisfied with her. Hence, the matter of the female lead could be said to have been decided. However, after Gu Xiaoyang strongly recommended Yun Shishir to Sun Hua and Sun Hua showed Li Dongliang the photo, he started to miss Yun Shishir. After being in the industry for so long, he had played with many women. There was the charming and enchanting Yan Bingqing, the peerless Han Yuyan, and the fresh and beautiful Yang Mi. Most of them were like products of the assembly line. They had the same face and were not distinguishable, let alone temperament. Yun Shishir, on the other hand, had a unique temperament. She was pure and refined. What made it even more unbearable was that she seemed to have a temperament that made one want to conquer her impatiently. The more pure and beautiful a woman was, the more men wanted to conquer her and the more they wanted to ravage her. This was probably the deep-rooted bad habit of some men. A man's desire to conquer was undoubtedly manifested in 2 aspects. One was his career. The other was his woman. Hence, Li Dongliang personally said that he wanted to treat Yun Shishir to a meal. He wanted to make a move on her. Who knew that Yun Shishir was not a person who knew how to play the game? She actually rejected him. However, Li Dongliang was indignant. Wasn't this clearly embarrassing him? He scolded Sun Hua badly. The next day, Sun Hua drove to Huanyu Tower and directly found the head of Huanyu's public relations department, Kong Xiaoqian. Speaking of Kong Xiaoqian, she was the head of Huanyu's public relations department. She was very young, but she had already become the head of the public relations department. How capable was she? That's not true either. Huan Yu's internal relationships were intricate and complicated. Anyone who could occupy a place in Huan Yu's upper echelons had a lot of connections behind them. Kong Xiaoqian was the daughter of the Kong Consortium. The relationship between the Kong Consortium and the Mu Corporation could be traced back to more than a decade ago. The cooperation between the two families was not shallow. Just the East Bay project that the Kong Consortium had just taken over from the Mu Corporation was worth several billion yuan. Kong Xiaoqian majored in public relations in university. After graduation, her father arranged for her to enter Huan Yu's public relations department. A few months later, she was officially appointed as the deputy head of the public relations department. Now, he had been promoted to the level of a minister. After sitting down, Sun Hua went straight to the point and brought up this matter. Department head Kong, there's an artist called Yun Shishir in your company. Do you remember her? Chapter 1022. Kong Xiaoqian had gone abroad a few months ago to prepare for delivery. She had just returned not long ago and had not finished handing over the company's affairs. We've worked together for so many years, but this is the first time I've seen such an arrogant artist under Huan Yu. She just debuted and acted in a movie, and she's already so arrogant. The movie hasn't even been released yet, and she's already acting like a big shot. How is this appropriate? Kong Xiaoqian fiddled with her beautiful nails as she smiled and said, "Manager's son, calm down too. Don't get angry over a small artist, haha. It's not worth it. Director Li wants me to hand her over tomorrow. No matter what, I must bring Yun Shishir to him today. Chief Kong, give me a definite answer too. Don't make things too difficult for me. I heard that this Yun Shishir has just debuted, and the company has spent so many resources on her because she has some relationship with our young Master Mu. Who knows, maybe she's young Master Mu's pet." Kong Xiaoqian smiled sweetly as she spoke, as if she was a rich man's daughter. Pet was a jargon in this industry. It meant that she was a mistress kept by a big shot. Sun Hua smiled contemptuously and said, "No wonder she's so ostentatious. It turns out that she's hooked up with young Master Mu. She just debuted and got the female lead role in director Lin's movie. She stole the limelight and was unrivaled for a while. It's all because of the unspoken rules. Since it's all because of the unspoken rules, why is she still so pretentious?" Kong Xiaoqian was a little hesitant. She couldn't figure out the relationship between Yun Shishir and Mu Yazhe. Everyone said that she and young Master Mu had a close relationship, but to what extent? She didn't know. Sun Hua smiled faintly and asked word by word, "Chief Kong, are you afraid that you won't dare to touch Yun Shishir because she's young Master Mu's woman?" Kong Xiaoqian said, "Manager's son, if she's really young Master Mu's woman, I won't dare to touch her at all." "How is that possible? Young Master Mu would fancy a woman in the entertainment industry." Sun Hua snorted coldly. "After all, even if she's Master Mu's pet, he's just playing with her. Young Master Mu was as precious as gold and jade. How could she be a match for him? One was in heaven while the other was on earth. Moreover, if she was really the woman that young Master Mu had his eyes on, how could young Master Mu allow his woman to mingle in the entertainment industry? Since you're in this circle, you should understand the rules of the game." Pausing for a moment, Sun Hua sneered coldly, "Since she likes to climb up high so much, then with this opportunity in front of her, why doesn't she hurry up and climb up the pole? If she served Boss Li well, she would be rewarded handsomely. Naturally, you will also get your share." Kong Xiaoqian was still a little hesitant when Sun Hua said, "I heard that your father recently got the East Bay project, but he's still short of funds. If you can get Yun Shishir here, I'll talk to President Li. Maybe if Yun Shishir serves him well, he'll be happy and—" His voice stopped abruptly, and he didn't continue speaking. Kong Xiaoqian naturally understood the hidden meaning in his words. Her red lips curled up slightly as she exchanged a glance with Sun Hua and smiled mysteriously. Chapter 1023. In the past, whenever her eyelids started twitching, it was always a bad sign. Qin Zhou had something to attend to. Before he left, he asked Yun Shishir to consider the role of the second female lead in Lethal Beauty. If she accepted the role, he would help her settle it. Yun Shishir was flipping through the script when Kong Xiaoqian suddenly walked in. Seeing that she was engrossed in reading the script, Kong Xiaoqian knocked on the door. The sudden movement startled her. Yun Shishir looked up. Seeing that it was Kong Xiaoqian, she smiled. Department Head Kong. Hello. Kong Xiaoqian walked straight to her and sized her up. Suddenly, she smiled and asked, Yun Shishir, are you free tonight? Yes, why? Kong Xiaoqian nodded and said, tonight, you and Li Quan will go meet a client. Li Quan was the secretary of the Public Relations Department. Yun Shishir had met him once before. Meeting a client. Yun Shishir was a little hesitant. She was in a hurry to go home. But on the other hand, she didn't want to offend Kong Xiaoqian, so she was a little hesitant. Kong Xiaoqian sized her up and warned, this client is very important to the company. Yun Shishir, you have to remember that you're an artist under Huan Yu. So, you have to know what you're doing and what you're saying. Don't do anything that will cause losses to the company, understand? Kong Xiaoqian said meaningfully. Suddenly, she smiled strangely and said, that's good. This is a rare opportunity for you to train. Yun Shishir hesitated for a moment, then smiled and nodded. Yes, I understand. She suddenly asked, Department Head, what kind of client is it? An investor. I heard that he thinks highly of you and wants you to act in a movie he's investing in. Go and have a good talk with him. Oh. She tidied up the script and locked it in the drawer. Then, she left with Li Quan, who was waiting at the door. Li Quan obviously didn't expect that Yun Shishir would be attending the social event with him this time. He was a little stunned for a moment. He had met her face to face a few times. She was beautiful, smart, and very polite. She had just stepped into society, and her whole person was as white and clean as a piece of white paper. Even a drop of ink stain on her would be so dazzling. In his heart, he suddenly felt a little regretful. He looked at Yun Shishir and guessed a thing or two. It was a common occurrence to give away women in the Vanity Fair. In the past, he often brought artists to social events. Many female artists were beautiful and smart. Not only did they have a glib tongue, but they also knew how to please men. In order to climb up the social ladder, they were willing to suffer any kind of loss. Li Dongliang was a sly old fox with a bad reputation. He was greedy for beauty and had toyed with many artists. He had toyed with both men and women. He even toyed with little fresh meats and was quite fierce. The so-called discussions about scripts and movie contracts, in the end, were all about the bed. Sleep with him for a few nights. This was how resources came about. When Li Quan saw Yun Shishir's pure and clear smile, he felt indignant, but he couldn't bear to see her like this. She wasn't scheming at all. She probably didn't expect that Kong Xiaoqian was pushing her into the fire pit. Yun Shishir was only in her 20s. Li Dongliang was ruthless and liked to take advantage of young women. He also liked to play with women. How could Yun Shishir withstand his ravaging? Kong Xiaoqian was really ruthless. However, Li Quan only thought about it in his heart. Kong Xiaoqian's status was not ordinary now. How could he dare to go against her? Chapter 1024. The interests involved in this matter were too deep, so he dared not interfere. When Yun Shishir left the company with Li Quan, the latter went to get his car and asked her to wait for him at the entrance. Thus, she gave Yu Yu a call while she was at it. He did not pick up her 2 calls, and it was only on her third call that he finally picked up. Yu Yu's voice sounded tired and hoarse. "Hello." Yun Shusher could hear his tiredness and her heart ached for him. "Hence," she said, "Yu Yu, Mommy will be back late today. Rest early and don't wait for Mommy." "How late will Mommy be back?" "Around 9:30 p.m. "Oh." Yu Yu sounded a little unhappy as he said slowly, "Mommy will be back late." "Yu Yu can't sleep well." Yun Shusher was stunned for half a second before she gently said, "Yu Yu, Mommy will definitely be back early, but Yu Yu, don't wait too late." Yu Yu replied, "Okay. Mommy must be back early." Wax. Wax. Yun Shusher hung up the call just as Li Quan drove the car over. Inside the car, the man held the steering wheel with a frown, deep in thought. Yun Shusher sat at the side, feeling nervous at the thought of having to socialize with those investors. She turned her head and sincerely said, "Secretary Li, this is my first time meeting the investors. If I say something wrong, please remind me." The man looked at her with pity. Yun Shusher saw his strange expression and asked worriedly, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" "I'm fine," Li Quan smiled absent-mindedly. Looking at her concerned expression, he suddenly felt a strong sense of guilt. Mu Shi had just returned to the company and was about to go home when she saw Sun Hua and Kong Xiaoqian walking out of the elevator as she passed by. She subconsciously hid at the side when she saw that it was Kong Xiaoqian. However, he heard Kong Xiaoqian's laughter. "Manager's son, don't you think I'm being too cruel?" Li Dongliang is a man with a wicked sense of humor. He's not any better than He Lingxiang. I heard that he has ruined a few young actresses. You must ask Director Li to be more tolerant of Yun Shusher. Don't swallow her whole. Mu Shi was so shocked that she almost let out a yelp. She quickly covered her mouth and held her breath as she heard Sun Hua say, "Humph. Doesn't Yun Shusher like to climb up the social ladder?" Although Li Dongliang has a strong family background, his net worth is not small. I'm not mistreating him by letting such a big branch fly. Kong Xiaoqian smiled. Sun Hua continued, "This Yun Shusher is a stunner." It was no wonder that Mr. Li was so attentive to her. Who told her to be born with a foxy face? Men like this kind of woman. Kong Xiaoqian laughed and teased, "Ha ha. Who knows, Yun Shusher might even be able to squeeze out the first wife and fly up the social ladder." The two figures gradually disappeared into the distance. Mu Shi, who was hiding behind a corner, was stunned. She widened her eyes in shock and gritted her teeth in anger. D***. Don't tell me that Kong Xiaoqian forced Yun Shusher to be a hostess. She had just gone out to ask around with her colleagues. That Li Dongliang was not a good person. He had a strong background and a bad character. She heard that he liked to play with women and that his methods were extremely cruel. If Yun Shusher were to fall into his hands, she would be eaten alive. Chapter 1025. She was about to leave when she suddenly remembered something and paused in her steps. If Kong Xiaoqian were to find out that she was the one behind this, she might lose her job. However, on second thought, Shusher trusted her so much and treated her as a close friend. If she were to abandon her now, that would be too much of a good conscience. Relying on her memory, she hailed a taxi to Xiangdi Walk and found her way to the villa's entrance. She pressed the doorbell and waited for a long time, but no one came to pick her up. Could it not be this villa? She did not remember wrongly, though. Was no one home? What should she do, then? If this dragged on, what would happen to Shusher? She could not help but shudder at the thought of Li Dongliang's wretched and sinister face. She was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Just as she was breaking out in cold sweat, she suddenly thought of Mu Yaja. She took out her phone, but she forgot that she did not have his number. She did not even have his office or secretary number. She was in trouble. She suddenly had an idea. She dialed the secretary's office number at Dishing's headquarters and then called the secretary's desk. The moment the call was picked up, she heard the secretary's respectful and polite voice. "Hello, this is Dishing Financial Group's secretary's desk. May I know who you are?" She cut her off and shouted, "I'm looking for Muyaja." "Secretary, She then hung up the call. She probably thought that she was a crazy woman. Who would call the CEO's name and go crazy? She widened her eyes in disbelief. This is too much. She hung up just like that. What kind of service is this? She must complain to Muyaja about them. Thus, she suppressed her anger and called the same secretary again. She suppressed her anger and said word by word, "Listen, don't hang up. This is an urgent matter, please listen to me first, okay?" The secretary's smile was a little stiff, but she still politely asked, "May I know who you are? Please transfer me to the CEO's office." The secretary was in a difficult position. "If we don't know who you are, it'll be considered a mistake on our part." She bit her lower lip and said, "I'm Huanyu's head of PR, Kong Xiaoqian." As soon as this name was announced, the secretary was stunned. His attitude took a 360-degree turn as he respectfully said, "Minister Kong, please wait a moment. I will transfer the call for you immediately." After waiting for the busy tone for a moment, the call was connected again. Muyaja's lazy voice came through, "Hello, what's the matter?" "Master Mu, I'm Yun Shishir's assistant, Mu Shi. We've met before." Muyaja raised his eyebrows, but his tone was still neither cold nor warm. "What's the matter?" She patiently recounted the entire incident. "It's like this, Imperial Hotel." Under the elegant light and the lingering smoke, the decadent sounds dyed the entire room with a bit of an ambiguous atmosphere. A woman with exquisite makeup was kneeling on the sofa. She was wearing a red dress that reached her hips and wrapped around her beautiful figure, revealing her curves. Without a doubt, this was a woman who was so coquettish that it was impossible for men not to be moved. She possessed a graceful and agile figure, her chest was full and snow-white, and her pair of fair and beautiful legs were half covered by her skirt. It was enough to make one's blood boil. Chapter 10:26. Looking at the woman who was slowly approaching him, his eyes slowly narrowed. The woman lifted her wavy brown hair with one hand and slowly pulled down the straps of her shirt with the other, revealing her delicate and flawless shoulders. She lifted the wine glass, her red lips kissed the rim of the glass and took a small sip of the wine. Then, she turned around and knelt on the sofa. She held his chin and sealed his lips. With this kiss, the tip of her tongue drew the sweet wine into his mouth. The rich wine flowed between his lips and teeth. The woman unbuttoned his collar and reached her hand into his lapel inch by inch, gently teasing him. Under the retro wall lamp, Li Dongliang's eyes were very deep, very deep. There was no need to hide the depth in them. The corners of his mouth slowly curled up. His large palm caressed her slender waist and caressed it wantonly. The woman's delicate voice tugged at his heartstrings. Suddenly, he wrapped one hand around the back of her neck and bit her earlobe. The woman gasped in surprise and couldn't help but pout coquettishly. Her small hand pushed his muscular chest, but it seemed like an invisible temptation. It also seemed like she was resisting but welcoming it. Just when the atmosphere was at its most intimate, someone knocked on the door carefully. Li Quan walked in with Yun Shishir. Seeing such a hot scene in the private room, Yun Shishir was shocked and thought that she had walked into the wrong room. It wasn't until Li Quan gave a simple introduction that Yun Shishir realized that she had been ruthlessly sold by Kong Xiaoqian. What did she mean by meeting the investor, Li Dongliang? Wasn't he the executive from Universal Pictures who had asked to meet her 2 days ago? Could it be a Hongmen banquet? However, since she was already here, she might as well take things as they came. Li Dongliang narrowed his eyes and sized up Yun Shishir. Although he had seen her photo, she was even more stunning in person. She was a beauty, a complete beauty. Her skin, even without any makeup, was still fair and flawless. Her beautiful eyes clearly didn't have any eyeliner, but they were so long and flirtatious, charming, and moving. Her nose was tall and straight, and her lips were soft and moist. She was natural and clean, but she had a kind of soul-stirring beauty. This type of beauty could not be replicated. It was unique, just like a poppy, dangerous yet beautiful. It possessed a type of fatal allure. Li Dongliang looked at the charming woman in front of him. He gently lifted her chin and looked at the delicate makeup on her face. She was a new artiste signed by Hana Entertainment Company. With the dazzling halo of the Miss Asia champion, she was now very popular in the circle. Right now, the model wanted to get herself a role in a blockbuster film invested in by Universal Pictures. Therefore, under the recommendation of her agent, she had this opportunity. How could she let this rare opportunity go to waste? Naturally, she had to perform well. But for some reason, when compared with Yun Shishir, this woman in front of him instantly paled in comparison. Although she was beautiful, her beauty was too rigid and monotonous, like the product of an assembly line, too empty. When he looked at Yun Shishir again, every inch of her facial features was extremely lively, especially her eyes, which were shining and captivating. Therefore, when Li Dongliang looked at the woman with heavy makeup on her face and glanced at the 2 layers of fake eyelashes, he couldn't help but feel disgusted. Suddenly, he lost interest and coldly pushed her away. Chapter 10:27. The woman looked at him in surprise, but she understood that Li Dongliang was no longer interested in her. And she was no longer attractive to him. She lowered her head and bit her lip. She felt a little unreconciled and strange. It was going well just now, but she didn't understand what went wrong. At the same time, she was secretly angry at the woman who barged in. The atmosphere was just right, and it was about to go smoothly, but she ruined it. She couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. She helplessly tugged at his sleeve and blushed. She felt wronged and murmured, "Director Li, what's wrong?" Li Dongliang didn't even look at her. "Get out." Then my role, get out." The woman was unwilling, but she got up helplessly and left the room. Yun Shishir sat a little cautiously in her seat, occasionally glancing at Li Dongliang, who was sitting in the main seat. From the moment she entered the room, this man had been looking at her from top to bottom with a very strange gaze. That gaze made her feel very uncomfortable. It was as if he couldn't wait to peel off her skin and eat her bones clean. She looked at Li Quan for help, but she saw that he was still calm, but his smile was slightly unnatural. At the banquet, the topic originally revolved around the interests and cooperation of the 2 companies. Everyone sitting there was a knife hidden in their smiles. You could often distinguish 3 meanings from one sentence. They had dug a trap and were waiting for you to jump into it. This was one of the few occasions that Yun Shishir attended such events. How many of the faces on the table were real? Everyone seemed to have their own ulterior motives. After half a glass of wine, the smiles on the table gradually became a little impure. They began to talk about things that Yun Shishir had never heard of, such as how much a certain female star was paid for a night, or a certain socialite being kept as a mistress. Li Dongliang was even more slovenly when he opened his mouth. He said boldly, "Don't look at those female stars on TV. Who knows which sugar daddy they are having sex with in the middle of the night? Ha! That's all on the surface. But in reality, it's all dirty. Do you know that song Queen from Hong Kong? Do you know why Yang Shouqing wants to support her?" Everyone was all ears. Li Dongliang snorted coldly. First, this woman and Yang Shouqing's 8 characters are compatible. Secondly, Yang Shouqing brought the 3 women to a dinner party and pointed to a pot of spring rolls on the table. He said that if anyone could break a spring roll on the plate with their legs, he would promote that person to a higher position. Hee hee. Later on, when she became famous, we all secretly called her spring rolls. Everyone was speechless. What a bad taste. Yun Shishir, on the other hand, was confused. She did not understand what Li Dongliang meant by clipping it off with your lower body. However, when he looked around again, he saw that everyone was secretly laughing in tacit understanding. He felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. This is really a bad taste, but it sounds quite interesting. Another producer laughed. In terms of bad taste, who can compare to healing? What do you mean? Chapter 1028. Haha. Isn't that so? I've played with Lin Haiyu before. She's boring. Li Dongliang frowned and pretended to be serious. But that young master is so infatuated with that Lin Haiyu. He wants her no matter what. So, his mother, the chairman of the board of directors, said that if she wants to marry into a rich family, she has to give birth to a son first. But Lin Haiyu's stomach is disappointing. She hasn't given birth yet. Haha. What do you know? The producer laughed. She can't give birth at all. She was played by those sugar daddies in the past. I heard that there was once a ridiculous incident. Tell me about it. Li Dongliang said with interest. One night, Lin Haiyu was rushed to the hospital. Apparently, the three of them were having a threesome with a director and a sugar daddy. I don't know how the three of them came up with the idea of stuffing a billiard ball into her lower body, so she couldn't take it out. Lin Haiyu said. That night, Lin Haiyu was sent to the hospital in a hurry. It was He Lingxiang's doing. Everyone thought that it was ridiculous and amusing at the same time, and they all laughed. Yun Shishir was the only one who sat stiffly in her seat. Her face was a little pale. What the hell is going on? Li Dongliang laughed. He's still being merciful. He Lingxiang has played with many young models before. Yun Shishir found these topics unpleasant. Gradually, she felt that she couldn't sit still, but she couldn't leave without permission. She didn't know how long it would take for this ridiculous banquet to end. She carefully tugged at Li Quan's sleeve, but the latter ignored her. Li Dongliang obviously noticed her little movement. He squinted his eyes and looked at her flustered face. He suddenly remembered Kong Xiaoqian's phone call before the banquet. Kong Xiaoqian said that the woman was a gift that she had specially sent to him as a filial piety. She asked him to have fun and play with her as he pleased. However, she was Qin Zhou's artist after all. She was afraid that it would be difficult to explain. She also mentioned the shortage of funds for the East Bay project. Naturally, Li Dongliang agreed. Kong Xiaoqian was overjoyed. She told him to have fun and hung up the phone happily. Li Dongliang was a capitalist. Naturally, he would not invest in a loss-making project for a woman. The East Bay project was won by the Mu Consortium and handed over to the Kong Consortium. Naturally, it was a golden resource that was guaranteed to be profitable. Li Dongliang glanced at Yun Shishir meaningfully. This woman was truly a stunner. Her appearance was delicate and beautiful, and her temperament was pure. What was even rarer was, he furrowed his brows. This woman in front of him actually bore some resemblance to Qingqing. Speaking of this Li Dongliang, he was also one of Qingqing's many admirers back then. At that time, Qingqing's status in Beijing was similar to the status of Meng Lina in Asia. He had many admirers. Li Dongliang was naturally one of them. But speaking of Qingqing, he had both love and hate. Love was natural. Since ancient times, a gentle and graceful woman was a good match for a gentleman. Although Li Dongliang was not a gentleman, he hated Qingqing for being too aloof and arrogant. She was as beautiful as a blooming rose, but her entire body was covered in sharp thorns. With just a touch, one would be covered in wounds and could only be admired from afar. Chapter 1029. However, this Rose did not lack followers like him. She was like a moon surrounded by stars. However, Mo Qingqing's personality was too prideful. Because of this, she didn't even bother to look at him. This caused Li Dongliang to feel bitter. At that time, he was just the boss of a small company. He was not rich and did not have the ability to compete with those big bosses of the upper class. However, when he was successful in his business, Qingqing suddenly disappeared from capital city. There was no news about her. Although the beauty of this girl before him couldn't be compared to Qingqing back then, her facial features and her charm were 70 to 80% similar to Qingqing. If she dressed up, they would be exactly the same. From the first time he saw her, if it wasn't for their age difference, he would have thought that this woman in front of him was Qingqing. It was common for business to send women as gifts. In this day and age, how many companies had a clean public relations department? Since it was Kong Xiaoqian who sent this woman to him, he did not need to pretend to be polite. He was very satisfied with this woman. Looking at her young face and thinking about her seductive posture in bed, he could not help but feel a little aroused. If it wasn't for his face, he really wanted to hastily end this boring banquet and bring this charming little woman along to have some fun. However, this woman did not seem to give him any face. She did not even touch the wine in front of her. No matter how he tried to persuade her, she refused again and again, claiming that she could not drink. This must be a joke. She could not drink. The entertainment industry was half a Vanity Fair. She said that she could not drink. It seemed that this woman wanted to avoid it. However, he was not in a hurry. He was the CEO of the Li Group. What woman could he not handle? These women were only interested in money and power. Give them some benefits, and they would get it. It was nothing more than checks, villas, luxury cars, jewelry. Women loved nothing more than these. He was not the same as before. With his wealth, there was nothing that she could not satisfy. Thinking of this, he smiled and asked, "Miss Yun, can you sing?" "No." Yun Shishir forced a smile. She thought to herself, "Do I have to report to you if I can sing? It's none of your business. Also, when will this drinking party end?" Li Dongliang saw that she was absent-minded and filled his glass to the brim. He raised his goblet at her and smiled. "Miss Yun, may I have the honor of toasting you?" Yun Shishir was a little anxious. She looked at the time and the sky outside the window. Seeing that this big boss wanted to propose a toast to him, he couldn't help but feel a little awkward. He pursed his lips and said apologetically, "Director Li, I'm sorry. I can't drink today." "Isn't that a little inappropriate?" Li Dongliang was a little dissatisfied in his heart. This little woman didn't even give him face. He squinted his eyes and rebuked, "You should at least have a drink. Don't ruin everyone's mood. How can there be no reason not to drink at the table?" Yun Shishir was extremely embarrassed. This Li Dongliang had put it this way. If she didn't drink it, she wouldn't be giving him face. Chapter 1030. She really couldn't drink. If she could hold her liquor well, not to mention Li Dongliang, everyone at the table would have forced her to drink until she passed out. At the thought of her not giving him face, Li Dongliang might be dissatisfied with her attitude. Or perhaps because of this, the film contract might fall through. Yun Shishir was so shocked that she was trembling all over. But when she thought of Mu Yaja finding out that she looked like the reincarnation of Satan after drinking, she suddenly felt her hair stand on end. On second thought, she still felt that she could offend Li Dongliang but not Mu Yaja. Thinking of this, she shook her head and said tactfully, half jokingly and half seriously, "Sorry, I really can't drink. If I can hold my liquor well, I'll give you a toast." Li Dongliang smiled and narrowed his eyes as he asked, Miss Yun, you can't hold your liquor well. Yun Shishir said embarrassedly, yes, I'll be drunk after one glass. Li Dongliang also smiled playfully and said cheerfully, Miss Yun really knows how to joke. How can you hold your liquor so badly? If you can't hold your liquor well, you need to train more. Train my ass. If you could train your liquor well, anyone could drink. Yun Shishir smiled as she cursed in her heart. She poured some tea and used it as a substitute for alcohol to give Li Dongliang a toast as an apology for her negligence. Li Dongliang smiled as he drank the white wine in his cup in one gulp. His lips curled into a meaningful smile. The show had just begun. At the table, Li Dongliang didn't mention a word about the film contract for Lethal Beauty. This wasn't something he could bring up with his status. When it came to roles, actors had to fight for it themselves. Yun Shishir didn't have the slightest intention of begging him. Li Dongliang couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Hence, he made a call and called Lin Ji over. Once Lin Ji entered the private room, she first looked around and respectfully greeted the few bosses and producers present. Once she saw Yun Shishir, she was full of doubts and silently suspected that this Yun Shishir was not here to snatch the role from her, right? He couldn't help but raise his guard. Hence, she giggled and walked toward Li Dongliang. She hooked her arms around his neck and sat in his embrace. CEO Li, did you call me here because you missed me? Why haven't I seen you looking for me for so many days? Li Dongliang smiled, his big palm caressed her buttocks, fiercely kneaded, and kissed her mouth. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, this kiss was really too much. However, the few people present seemed to be used to such ***** scenes and did not show any expression of discomfort. Only Yun Shishir felt uncomfortable sitting on pins and needles. He felt especially embarrassed. Li Dongliang, on the other hand, seemed to have the intention of letting Yun Shishir see how other women worked hard to please him. On the other hand, Yun Shishir was not only indifferent, but she also seemed to be disgusted by such an erotic scene. She kept her head down, and no one knew what she was thinking. What on earth was this woman thinking? In the past, at such a dinner party, a woman like her would think of ways to please the sugar daddy so that she could get the female lead role. But look at her. She didn't even drink. Even after such a long time had passed, she didn't say anything. She was completely uninvolved. Even if she was pretending to be aloof, she should have had enough. He didn't believe that there was a woman in this world who was indifferent to glory and wealth. Chapter 1031. No matter how pure a woman was, like Lin Ji, she had only debuted for a year and was already tamed. However, Yun Shishir's temperament was very similar to Allure's. She had the same arrogance, and the same desire to conquer her. Lin Ji looked at Li Dongliang's eyes, which never left Yun Shishir, and suddenly felt a sense of crisis. She had spent so much effort to get the female lead role of Lethal Beauty. How could she allow others to snatch it away? Therefore, she tried even harder to please Li Dongliang. However, no matter how much Lin Ji tried to please him, the evil fire in Li Dongliang's eyes could not be quelled. Only he himself knew what his ambition was. Therefore, when the banquet ended, the representatives of Universal Pictures and Huanyu Entertainment signed the document, which meant that the banquet had come to an end. Li Dongliang had a good relationship with Kong Xiaoqian. Before the banquet, they had already informed each other, so Li Quan naturally knew about it. After the banquet ended, Li Quan and Yun Shishir sent off the representatives of Universal Pictures as a courtesy. Li Quan said to Yun Shishir, Shishir, you stay here and accompany Mr. Li. I'll go and settle the bill first. Yun Shishir opened her mouth and wanted to refuse, but Li Quan left the room without looking back and closed the door. She sat down dejectedly and looked at Li Dongliang cautiously. All the cells and nerves in her body were instantly in a state of alert. She did not know why, but from the first time she saw this man, she felt wary. Especially that pair of eyes, which kept staring at her, sizing her up again and again, as if he was staring at his prey. It made her feel really uneasy. Li Dongliang saw that her eyes were drifting back and forth, and she couldn't sit still. He suddenly felt a little strange. Did Kong Xiaoqian not tell this woman what to do? Or was this woman playing hard to get, pretending to be young and innocent? Li Quan left for a long time and did not return. At first, Li Dongliang was still chatting with her seriously, but gradually, he started to talk about dirty jokes. Yun Shishir couldn't sit still. She hurriedly said, "Director Li, I'll go and see if Li Quan has, why are you still looking at him? Li Quan has already left." Li Dongliang said with a smile. Yun Shishir was a little confused, but she didn't think too much about it, so she explained, "How could Secretary Li leave? He still has to send me back later." Li Dongliang said, "I'll send you back. I wonder if Miss Yun is willing to give me this face." Yun Shishir quickly waved her hand and laughed awkwardly. "How can I accept that? Why are you embarrassed? Miss Yun, please don't be so courteous with me. Or are you unwilling to give me face?" Li Dongliang's smile became more and more intriguing. Yun Shishir lowered her head. She was really unwilling to let him send her back. Not to mention that she didn't want to be too close to him, just the thought of sitting in his car made her feel uncomfortable. But looking at his eyes, it seemed like she couldn't reject him. She thought about how she didn't give him face at the banquet. Now that he was kind enough to send her home, if she kept rejecting him, wouldn't she not even give him a way out? If she still didn't give him some face, she would really be going overboard. Thinking about it, even though she was really unwilling, Yun Shishir couldn't reject him anymore. Chapter 1032. Left with no choice, Yun Shishir could only nod in agreement. However, when she saw the unconcealable sharpness in his eyes, she felt her right eyelid twitch violently again. As for Li Quan, the bill was directly deducted from the company's account. Paying the bill was just an excuse for him to slip away. Kong Xiaoqian had already told him that Yun Shishir was a gift for Li Dongliang, so she reminded him to leave after the meal. As for Yun Shishir, she would leave her to Li Dongliang to enjoy. Li Quan could naturally tell that Yun Shishir was kept in the dark until now. She did not even know that this was not a dinner party but a shocking scam set up by Kong Xiaoqian. The so-called dinner party was just for her to accompany an old man and sell her to him. In this materialistic era, having money meant having power. Li Dongliang's net worth was huge. Although his foundation was not deep, he was still a prominent entrepreneur in the capital. He was ruthless and was someone Li Quan could not afford to offend. Although he felt sorry for Yun Shishir and even felt that it was unfair, he could only think about it in his heart. Not to mention Li Dongliang, even Kong Xiaoqian could crush him with a single finger. Just as he was thinking this, he walked out of the hotel and saw Mu Shi, who had just alighted from a taxi, rushing toward the hotel's entrance. He was stunned and narrowed his eyes curiously. He seemed to recognize this girl. She was Yun Shishir's assistant and had a good relationship with Yun Shishir. Seeing her rush through the door, he hurriedly grabbed her wrist. She was stunned. When she looked up and saw Li Quan, her eyes lit up and she quickly asked, "Secretary Li." "Just in time. I'm looking for Shishir. Did you see her?" He frowned and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Why are you looking for her?" Mu Shi was not wary of him and said impatiently, "I overheard Mr. Kong saying that Yun Shishir is accompanying a client at the company's entrance, so I rushed over." "Where's Shishir? Where is she?" Li Quan pursed his lips and frowned. He asked curiously, "She's just an unknown artist in the company. It doesn't matter who department head Kong wants her to accompany. Besides, it's normal for artists to accompany people to dinner." Hearing this, Han Xiaoxiao felt very uncomfortable. She couldn't help but frown slightly as she retorted, "Don't tell me it's natural for celebrities to eat with others. Wasn't this a little too much? Besides, you also know that Li Dongliang." "Enough," he interrupted her impatiently. "Mu Shi, aren't you already off work? Why are you here?" "Of course I'm here to find Shishir." Mu Shi craned her neck and peered inside before grumbling, "I heard from Kong Xiaoqian that she made Yun Shishir sleep with Li Dongliang. So aren't you worried?" When Li Quan heard this, he was a little flustered. However, he pretended to be serious and said coldly, "You can't talk nonsense like this. Be careful not to let department head Kong hear you and fire you." "But I clearly heard it with my own ears. How can it be fake?" With that, she wanted to barge into the hotel. "I'm going to find her." He hurriedly pulled her back. "Where are you going?" Chapter 1033. Li Quan sighed. "Stop fooling around, Mu Shi. Yun Shishir has already returned to the company, you shouldn't stay here. Don't you still have to work tomorrow?" Yun Shishir was wanted by Li Dongliang, and Kong Xiaoqian had already established a good relationship with him. How could he let her take her away? Besides, how could she afford to offend someone like Li Dongliang? Really? Mu Shi looked at him skeptically. "Did she return to the company?" He nodded without a change in expression. "Yes. What else could it be? She just left." Seeing that she was still doubtful, he half pushed and half pulled her toward the car park. "Let's go. It's on the way, I'll send you home." She let him pull her arm in a daze, but she kept looking back at the hotel entrance, which was getting further and further away from her. She suddenly had a bad feeling. It was only when she got into the car and drove for a while that she realized that things might not be as simple as they seemed. She hurriedly shouted for him to alight. Of course, he was unwilling to stop the car. She started making a fuss in the car. "Secretary Li, let me out. I'm warning you, Yun Shishir's identity is not simple. Don't think that she's just an ordinary artiste." "What? Are you threatening me?" Li Quan narrowed his eyes, the look in his eyes dangerous. She snorted and puffed out her chest. "What if I tell you that she's Chairman Mu's woman?" The car came to a sudden stop. He widened his eyes in shock. "What did you say?" "Yun Shishir is Chairman Mu's woman, if she gets hurt." He. You should have heard of Chairman Mu's methods. Don't blame me for not warning you when the time comes. She was not to be outdone. He was skeptical. If she's really Master Mu's woman, why is she working in a place like showbiz? Mu Shi, being Master Mu's woman means endless glory and wealth. Mu Shi, where did you get this rumor from? What a joke. She snorted and mocked his ignorance. She did not care what he thought and immediately got out of the car. She slammed the door shut and said fiercely, "Li Quan, if anything happens to Shishir, you're finished." After saying that, she turned around and ran towards the hotel. Li Quan sat in the driver's seat in a daze, unable to regain his senses for a long time. At the same time, Yun Shishir sat in Li Dongliang's car, feeling uneasy. Li Dongliang sat in the back seat. She wanted to sit in the front passenger seat, but Li Dongliang said it was against the rules. Thus, she had no choice but to sit in the back seat while trembling with fear. However, she deliberately kept a distance from him. She told the driver the address and sat close to the door. However, she saw that the road outside the car window was a little strange. She turned her head and reminded the driver, "Mr. Driver, this is not the way back to the company. We should have taken that path." The driver shook his head and smiled, but he didn't say anything. Li Dongliang teased, "Don't worry, he knows what he's doing. Is Miss Yun afraid that we'll sell you out?" Yun Shishir shook her head and then lowered her head without saying anything. She fiddled with her fingers. The atmosphere in the car made her feel extremely uncomfortable. She really wanted Li Dongliang to leave her by the roadside and take a taxi home alone. As the car sped along the road, the scenery outside the window kept changing. She felt more and more that something was wrong. Chapter 1034. She sat up uneasily and leaned against the window to look around. She frowned and said, "This is clearly going in the opposite direction of the company." Li Dongliang smiled eerily and said, "Of course not." Yun Shishir turned around abruptly and asked, "Then where are we going?" She looked a little flustered and incredulous. Li Dongliang clearly said that he would send her back. Why did he go back on his word now? What she couldn't understand was that she didn't know where he was taking her. "Mr. Li, just drop me off here. I'll take a taxi back." Li Dongliang said, "This place is so remote. How can you get a taxi? You're a girl. Isn't it unsafe?" Yun Shishir was angry. She didn't care about his status and raised her voice. "Mr. Li, you have to understand that you're the one who brought me to this so-called remote place. I clearly told you the company's address, but why did you drive to this place? What are your intentions? If you're really worried about me, it's useless to say all this here. Why don't you send me back to the company now?" Li Dongliang stared at her for a long time and suddenly laughed out loud. Yun Shishir looked at him strangely. She really didn't know what was so funny. "Hurry up and send me home." "What if?" Li Dongliang muttered slowly, "I don't want to." Yun Shishir widened her eyes and looked at the evil glint in his eyes. She suddenly reacted and quickly forced herself to calm down. She narrowed her eyes and asked with a cold smile, "What exactly do you want?" Li Dongliang raised his eyebrows disapprovingly. "We're already in the car. Are you still going to play dumb with me? Don't you know what you're here for? Didn't Kong Xiaoqian teach you?" Yun Shishir frowned. "What am I here for?" "Of course I'm here to discuss the film contract with you. But now that the dinner is over, don't you think you should let me go back?" She was not an idiot, nor was she a woman with a low EQ like Mu Yaja had described her to be. If she still couldn't tell what was going on, then she should really go for an IQ test. She could tell that the man in front of her was very interested in her. She could also tell that he had ulterior motives. She had already felt that something was wrong with him, but she didn't think too deeply about it. Firstly, during the banquet, he didn't make any aggressive movements or expressions towards her. Secondly, she believed that with Li Dongliang's status, he would never lack women, let alone a woman like her. Ever since the banquet had ended, all the things he had done to her had alarmed her greatly. Therefore, she tried her best to keep a distance from him. When she first entered the company, she had heard about some unspoken rules. She had also heard about drinking and sleeping with others. However, she had never thought that such a thing would happen to her one day. Sleep with him. Accompany my ass. That Kong Xiaoqian is too much. He clearly knew that it was such an improper dinner party, yet he still let her come. He obviously did it on purpose. Yun Shishir clenched her fists and said coldly, "Li Dongliang,